The legendary Hollywood director, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 851, Smith's Value, Subscriptions, Votes. The preparation of the sequel to Night at the Museum does not require Lyman to worry too much. The original team plus the script that has been determined long ago can be advanced step by step. In addition, the overseas priority distribution rights are in the hands of Fox, and they are willing to contribute. In North America, in 2006, Blue Butterfly Pictures, Lionsgate, and Screen Gems jointly launched this one. In fact, it is difficult for a sequel to escape the production system set by the first one, because this is the rule in Hollywood. No one will kick out the partner after the project becomes bigger. Everyone abides by it, mainly due to contract restrictions. Just when Joseph arranged for people to go to the mainland to find a foundry, Lyman also quickly kept the appointment and went to Akiva Goldsman's studio. This guy is a typical filmmaker who makes a big career out of screenwriting. He can write and write by himself, and he also supports a team and often cooperates with other studios. Goldsman is a member of the production team of Hancock released this summer, responsible for controlling the direction of the plot. In the past, he also contributed to the Da Vinci Code. He is a capable person who can build a good relationship with the studio. After we got there, Goldsman had just moved into a new building with cheap rent and plenty of space. The people coming and going seemed a bit impressive. However, as a filmmaker who had been in the industry for more than 10 years and made his fortune through connections and social skills, Goldsman was used to the ups and downs. He did not get carried away just because the development in the past 2 years was smooth and he made some money. On the contrary, he became more respectful and enthusiastic and kept getting closer to Lyman. Occasionally he apologized and dealt with some trivial matters. "I'm sorry to make you laugh. We just moved in and there are still many things that haven't been done yet." The spacious office seemed a bit messy. The two sat opposite each other, and Goldsman asked his assistant to bring in coffee. After a few pleasantries, Goldsman said, "You came at the right time. Let's see if the script is suitable, and if there is room for improvement." He took out the final version of I'm Legend, and handed it to Lyman. He was very concerned about this project, which was the one that he was most likely to benefit from so far. Why? I'm a Hero has a global box office of nearly 600 million, and as the final chapter of the trilogy, it is very likely to surpass that. As a producer and co-benefit, he can share 5% of the revenue, not profit, which is $15 million US. How can he not be positive? Under someone's expectant eyes, Lyman flipped through the story for a while. Although it was definitely not consistent with the original story. After all, this one needed to retain the background system originated from travel to New York and the sense of doomsday alienation and loneliness set at the beginning. The setting of one person and one dog was not lost, but there were still some minor problems. In the second half, the main topic is the evolution of zombies and their wisdom. Everything else was deleted. At the beginning of the first section, a 10-minute city miniature was added, and scenes of Mexico, Spain, Europe and other places being attacked by zombies were added. Then the male protagonist's role was taken over, and the ending was also changed. After losing his dog, he drove his car desperately into the zombie tide and died. The ending of this version is still the happy ending that is quite popular in Hollywood. The male protagonist in Goldsman's writing actually regained his faith and looked for survivors like him after losing his dog. This is actually unnecessary. It is more shocking to directly amplify the dramatic tension and die as the last human in the world. Moreover, the tradition of the male protagonist dying in the first two parts of the zombie trilogy cannot be lost. This is not intentional sensationalism, but a plot requirement. After the investor spoke, Goldsman was not a very stubborn person and quickly nodded in agreement. "Okay, I'll change it again. Yeah. This show also needs a leading actor. I prefer Will Smith. You've worked with him before, so you can make an appointment with him about this." "Will? Indeed, he's very suitable. A movie like Man of Steel can sell 642 million, which shows how amazing his box office appeal is. In such a one-man show, With his current status and popularity, he can indeed play the role of a publicity point. Smith is even more popular among the black community. In addition, he has performed more, and his acting skills have improved. Whether it is A Pursuit of Happiness or the original I'm Legend, his interpretation of the role is very good. I will contact him, but, Goldsman said tactfully in advance, his salary is not low now. How much did he get from Universal Man? 20 million plus 15% net profit. Earned 80 million for one movie. The offline results haven't come out yet, but it's about the same. Universal Man has earned him more than 65 million, but he is worth the price. Lemon, do you know what Columbia's profit expectations are for this project? How much? Hey, 400 million worldwide. He earned an extra 240 million for Columbia, and with a higher box office, the film copyright is more valuable. If you convert it a little, you can say that Columbia used the extra 30 million US dollars to get back nearly 270 million in return, which is a good deal. Goldsman admires Will Smith very much. There is no way. When he was on the set, he admired Will very much, so he naturally had to speak well of him. Moreover, he starred in 10 big movies, except for The Legend of Bevins, which lost money, up to 175 million US dollars in expenditure, but the total box office was only 220 million. The rest of them made profits for the cooperating studios, and half of the projects had a return rate of up to 1.5 times. Which is exaggerated. It is also a virtuous circle. The movie sells well and gathers fans. With more fans, the movie continues to sell well, and the appeal will only get higher and higher. This year's actor income list, without any surprise, this guy will top the list. After Cage won The King in 2007, Smith's World in 2008, and in 2007, Cage only won the first place with an income of 46 million. This time, he directly opened up a gap of more than 34 million. Because according to statistics from Fortune magazine, even Johnny Depp, who received a huge commission from Pirates of the Caribbean 3, only earned 72 million US dollars, which was definitely behind Will Smith. The list is as follows. 2. Johnny Depp, 72 million. 3. Eddie Murphy, 55 million. 3. Mike Myers, 50 million. 5. Leonardo DiCaprio, 45 million. 6. Bruce Willis, 41 million. 7. Nicolas Cage, 32 million. This guy starred in 2 movies this year, and the results were not impressive. One of them was an art film, and his income was much lower. How much do you think we have to spend? I'm Legend is not action oriented, which is good for Will's acting career. Maybe we can start from this aspect. After all, it is a one-man show, so there is more room for him to shine. He may also reduce his salary appropriately. Of course, he may not reach an agreement with his agent team. I can't guarantee it. There is no problem with the basic salary of 20 million, but I hope to lower the profit share. 15% is too much. I will try my best to negotiate. If you don't want to, do we have any alternatives? Christian Bale is also good, but Will Smith is definitely the first choice. He is more suitable for this project. Okay, I understand. As the producer of the project, and one of the stacker holders, Goldsman also wants the box office performance of the movie to be better, so he is willing to contribute. He has a lot of contact with Will Smith, and is quite familiar with him. It is easier to lower the price of familiar talents. Chapter 852. Don't express your opinion. Please subscribe and vote. Mr. Goldsman, what do you think of this paragraph I wrote? After Lemon left, Goldsman continued his work. He not only had a cooperative relationship with Firefly, but if he came across a good script, he could also recommend it to other studios to strive for his own profits. But the premise was that he needed to have a certain guarantee of success. Being a producer is actually not that easy. You don't have to invest money or take risks to get rewards. If he doesn't achieve results, he will soon be forgotten in the industry. Not good enough. Can you give me some specific advice? You want to write a gangster drama, but you don't write it commercially enough, and there are not many popular mainstream element. Goldsman said the most direct words with a pessimistic expression. Can you be more specific? Change the subject matter. You are not suitable for this. FXXK. The person on the other side suddenly said emotionally, "I've had enough, you XXXX." After that, he left angrily. Goldsman and his team were no longer surprised by this. His place is not a charity. Screenwriters who still have dreams often come to him and bring out scripts that they think are very good and then cooperate with him. Their purpose is just to use his connections. Generally, new screenwriters can submit scripts to major studios, but there is a high probability that they will enter the script library and collect dust. Therefore, people who know a little about the circle will try to impress more influential filmmakers first. It is easier to get adapted and get opportunities by directly looking for directors and producers than submitting scripts and taking chances. Although there is a strike wave of the Screenwriters Union brought about by the economic crisis, in fact, there are still many screenwriters who verbally support it and secretly take jobs. Moreover, there are so many people in the industry, most of whom will change careers and extinguish their literary dreams. Goldsman has seen many such people. He does not have an omniscient eye to know which script will be liked by the audience after being adapted and which will be resisted by the market. Moreover, even if there is a story, whether it can be filmed well is also a problem. So for him, his daily life is to constantly screen scripts and look for interesting ideas, hoping to find good stories that may be successful or very mainstream commercial scripts, and then find interested studios to sign contracts and set up crews. The studio actually follows this model, and they can even have a crew first and then a script. And there are always some pretentious people who get angry and curse a few words after getting perfunctory answers. If it is really valuable, he will certainly help, but there is no need to waste time on the kind of subject matter and writing that you feel is not good at first glance. What's the point of telling him? If you want to create again, you might as well think about an idea and start writing. Goldsman watched the man go out without caring, turned around and picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Hey, Will, have you taken a new play recently?" "Not yet." "That's good. I have a play I want to introduce to you. Don't worry, it's very reliable. It's a project that Lyman values." Listening to Will's slightly raised tone, Goldsman laughed and said, "And which Lyman?" "It's a play that Lyman Last's Firefly Pictures is preparing." "Well, I'm one of the producers and screenwriters of the project." "Ha, don't you know the relationship between me and Lyman? We know each other very well." Goldsman boasted. "It's not an action movie, it's about the end of the world. Let me tell you this project is the final chapter of the series that was decided a few years ago. If you promote this topic, the audience and fans will definitely be interested." "Oh, you thought of it?" "Yes, it's the sequel to I'm a Hero, the final chapter of the zombie trilogy. It will definitely be a hot topic." "Okay, think about it. If you are interested, we can talk about it in detail. I can only say that this project has a great chance of success and can open up new avenues for acting. After all, you can't always play action movies and comedies. This is a suggestion from a friend." After hanging up the phone, Goldsman whistled with some pride. He could feel that Will was interested. The only thing left was to negotiate the salary, which might be a more troublesome matter. Will Smith was indeed very interested. After receiving Goldsman's call, New York Trip made over $400 million. I'm a Hero made over $600 million. I'm Legend can't be too bad, right? The audience and fans are there. It can even be said that, because of the sentimentality of the finale, the audience's pickiness will be reduced, and the quality will be average, and the market performance will be good. Most series of movies, as long as the previous work is not dragged down. Basically the finale has the highest box office, even if it is not as good as the previous work. This is a conclusion drawn based on market data, and it is also one of the reasons why studios are happy to develop sequels. In addition, Will Smith himself also wants to work with Lyman, or in other words, there is no actor in Hollywood who does not want to participate in a project that a big director with a guarantee values. But how to negotiate? He still found the team to discuss. The agent's view on this invitation is also relatively optimistic, but he still reminded him, "Don't be careless. There are many people who want to see you unlucky, and those people really want you to fail." To be honest, the allocation of resources for Hollywood blockbusters has always been concentrated on top traffic artists. Will Smith can be so successful from another perspective, and he has blocked the way of many male actors in the same market. In addition, he has a high probability of reaching the top this year, so the hatred value will definitely be higher. If you think about it, you will know that he will have to be more careful when accepting roles in the future. Otherwise there are countless people who will take advantage of his misfortune. Why is it that when an actor is on the decline, the negative news and attacks are always so fierce? Because it is not easy to guide public opinion for successful people, and they are all holding it back. You can tell by just watching. Maybe, Will Smith is one of the few black people with high emotional intelligence and clear mind. He did not deny it, but he put away some small relief in his words. None of the recent film offers I received can compare to I'm Legend. We will come forward to help you communicate. You'd better not express your opinion. Will nodded. Well, you try your best to fight for it. I heard from Gorsman that this project seems to have invited more than just me. But you have to think about it. You just got a 2000 plus 15 profit sharing plan in Superman some time ago. If you reduce it rashly, it will damage your value. Then what are you going to do? I don't want to miss this movie. Smith's vision of choosing movies is really good, but later in order to pave the way for his son, he was not so sharp in this regard. We will adjust the negotiations according to the situation, but we can't let you be a breakthrough. Even if we reduce our salary appropriately, we will give priority to the film remuneration. You can't fall out of the 20 million club. Okay, don't be too procrastinating. Report to me first, if you have anything. Of course. Then I'll leave first, while I wait for your good news. Will stood up and said. Chapter 853 Intervention, Subscription, Votes Required. Because of Lyman's involvement, the birth of I'm Legend was 1 year later than that of I'm Legend. In addition, the original novel was always excluded by the studio because of the structure and production difficulty. The original time and space were also changed by the screenwriter team found by Goldsman as a producer to make it easier to shoot before it was approved. Of course, this play is a typical novel and clever opening, and the middle and later parts have become clichés and forced sensational dramas, but the plot in which the Night Demon begins to become intelligent and think is well designed, and this version also adopts it, but the system still follows the background environment of I'm a Hero and New York Trip. In a popular and commercial sense, the beginning of the film is more than 10 minutes of zombies attacking the city, which is a microcosm of the decline of other areas. Then 40 to 50 minutes are the daily life of one person and one dog, plus the protagonist's research on zombies, hoping to develop a medicine to save the society ravaged by the virus, and then supplemented by desperate personal dramas and the evolution of zombies. In terms of length alone, the main content of the film will be controlled at around 85 minutes, which is relatively short in first-line productions. When dealing with the economic team behind Smith, even though both parties belong to CAA, they are not afraid to raise the price because of this relationship. In the first contact, the other party offered $20 million plus 17% of the project profit, which is enough to witness the commercial value of a top-tier recognized artist. In other words, with the entry of capital, a movie with a salary of over $100 million will not be far away, because the salary increase of actors is basically jointly hyped by industry capital. Behind the substantial salary increase of action actors at the beginning, it was the German and British capital that enthusiastically pursued the stars with commercial guarantees at the time, in order to gain a foothold in Hollywood, and constantly offered high salaries in the industry to break the ceiling. However, actors with a little bit of brains will not ruin their future for temporary gains. If an actor shoots a bad movie, the commercial value will fall rapidly. Smith is very clear about how he got his current status. After all, when a very popular artist suddenly becomes unpopular, in addition to the age problem, most of them are not because they don't work hard or cherish, but because there are no good works coming out. The audience and the market spontaneously forget you, and it is difficult to have the conditions and choice space to fight. As the movie star who once became the most profitable movie star in 2007, Cage just didn't know how to manage his assets. He couldn't accept the sudden loss of wealth. His temperament changed, and he frantically took on movies to fill the gap. Then his salary fell to the bottom, and his popularity also fell. This is a very standard example. Of course, Cage's life has been changed since the filming of Fury. If there is a list of the most valuable male stars, this guy is stable in the top 5. His fans' desire to buy is not so strong compared with Will, Depp and others, but he has no shortage of awards, and he is successful in both business and art. The capital in the circle likes him very much. In the next few days, when the Golden Army had been abandoned by the theaters, the screening share was rapidly reduced, and the box office fell like bungee jumping. The conditions were already 22 million plus 10% of the net profit share. On October 22nd, a regular meeting at the Firefly building, Lyman and the management of the I'm Legend preparation crew started another discussion. Analyze whether the money can be paid based on commercial value. After all, the expenses for special effects, extras, and location shooting are about 95 million. If the salary of other creative and shooting staff is too high, the expenditure will be too much, which is not conducive to the film's revenue generation. The current environment is like this. As long as Will can bring the film a box office increase like Superman and get more black fans to pay for it, it is a good deal, no matter how you look at it. As the producer and screenwriter of the project, Gorsman is still very optimistic about this. He thinks he has done a good job and has reduced the share ratio to 10%, which is almost touching the other party's psychological bottom line. If he says so, this is already a good thing for the other party, because the project itself has low risks and is easy to achieve results. 400 million will not lose money, 600 million or 700 million can make money, so why not choose a movie star who can increase the box office and has enough appeal? Many people are confused about why they have to share the money. Please, if you choose an unknown newcomer and rely entirely on the market for the work, or if you hype up the momentum and make money with quality plus strong topicality, isn't the standard for calculating this a counter question of whether the effort and return are worth it? In other words, with the foundation laid by New York Trip and I'm a Hero, it is expected that this movie will break 600 million, but there is a little uncertainty. If you spend tens of millions more to find a popular movie star, this movie is expected to hit 800 million worldwide. Whether it is popularity or performance sharing or copyright value, it will be comprehensively improved. Then let's talk about whether this money can be spent. This is the case with Universal Superman. Columbia gave Smith 80 million. Will it feel heartbroken? Yes, but it will still do so, because this film has greatly exceeded the estimated performance, 640 million worldwide. It is not an exaggeration to say that it exceeds the imagination when the project was prepared. I have found the data of Smith's starring works. If you analyze the market, just based on his huge appeal among the black community, it can increase the average revenue of each movie by 30%. Lyman sat in his seat and mentioned it objectively. He didn't say whether it was worth it or not. After all, sometimes the returns are bigger and sometimes the returns are lower. These are all normal market reactions. He just gave an average value for reference. Lyman thought for a while and asked, how is the contact with director? He is still at Warner, but the project has entered the final stage. The schedule is not a problem. It should be guaranteed to start in mid-November. Speaking of which, director Zack was also very miserable when filming Watchmen. Although he also brought a team with him, most of them were filming staff gathered by Warner. In addition, the production team they sent liked to interfere in the filming, which made director Zack very uncomfortable and friction was easy to arise on the set. After all, filming is a delicate job, with many trivial matters and annoying. The crew is still restless, so you can imagine how they feel. After finally getting through all this, there were even more problems with post-editing. Sometimes they had to respect the original work, sometimes they had to consider the market, and sometimes they said that passers-by wouldn't understand it, so they had to insert some explanations and foreshadowing. In the end, there were even problems with the length of the film. The arguments never stopped, including the team in charge of Warner. Director Zack felt bitter, but because it was a project he liked, he gritted his teeth and cut a version, and then kept compromising with Warner, frantically deleting scenes. And he was from the first echelon of Man Media's co-directors. According to the rules, he could get 20 million plus 10% of the project's revenue for this film. That's it. Agree to those conditions and set up a team as soon as possible. Chapter 854 Digital Skin Graft Components, Subscriptions, Tickets. Pinewood Studios, UK, one of the filming locations for Captain America. In the room, the Russo brothers were looking through the shooting plan while looking at Kevin Feige with some expectation. From the beginning of the project, they didn't have much say in this movie. The actors were decided by the investors, and the shooting team was mostly built by the production staff and unions within the investors. Even what to eat, where to sleep, how to shoot, and what the effects should be, there are people who always care and pay attention to it. On the one hand, the reason for this is human factors, and on the other hand, they are really worried. As mentioned in the previous article, the Russo brothers are now only shooting TV series, and they have not shot many of them. The film projects have all failed, pitting several small production companies, which also makes them unable to be tough. As for Kevin, the weaker the director, the stronger he is, so this kind of passivity is very obvious. Fortunately, the Russell brothers have good personalities. Even though they are treated as shooting machines by the crew, they don't feel resentful. They are even glad that they have this opportunity. Apart from anything else, even if they are tools, Captain America is a thorough first-line production. There are not many Hollywood crews that can direct such a large scale. Of course, the more disciplined the two are, and the more they complete the tasks at hand, the more Kevin likes them, and they maintain a good relationship. You want to add more scenes? Kevin raised his head and took off the cigarette from his mouth. Tell me what you think. I think during training, we can spend a minute or two inserting a scene of getting the flag. In this way, we can show Steve Rogers' sense of the battle situation through scene creation, which is different from ordinary people. Kevin thought about it and felt that it made sense. He was considering the role and didn't play any art or deep interpretation, so he nodded in agreement. Although he doesn't like products that deviate from the plan, it doesn't mean that he doesn't allow any changes to the scenes. If he thinks some small details are useful, he can listen to them. This is what the original director Joe Johnston complained about in an interview with a media person. This guy's much more experienced than the Russo brothers. He was born as a special effects artist and directed the hit blockbuster Honey, I Shrunk the Kids of Disney Pictures. This film also made him one of the few directors in film history who created a box office record of more than $100 million for his first film. His works include The Rocketeer, Jumanji, October Sky, Jurassic Park 3, Desert Glory and The Wolf Man. So he didn't get along well with Kevin on the set, but because he signed the contract and gritted his teeth to become a tool man, they fell out. He joked that he had many inspirations for filming, but only one or two were approved, and they were all irrelevant to the general direction. This also shows that Marvel has a good idea of its own projects and has comprehensively considered the copyright surroundings, audience needs and market direction in advance, compared with DC. If we ignore the small mistakes of being too cautious in setting the plot, but still stepping into the pit, Kevin is absolutely competent. Outside the room, Evans was wearing a slightly tight uniform with the help of several staff members. Unlike the original version, there are not so many fancy designs. In addition to retaining the unique logo of Captain America, the overall color is mainly blue and red. The helmet is a special combat equipment with dot patterns that looks very cool. With the star shield, he has a strong body. He was 184 pounds before playing the role, and then he gained muscle to 200 pounds and carefully maintained his body shape. It can be said with certainty that he has never been thin. The amazing body changing technique in the movie is actually a special effect method to replace the head in the digital field, just like the curious case of Benjamin Button. The technical principle is not difficult. First, the team sent by Digital Domain found an actor, Linda Dini, Chris Evans' double, a British Shakespeare stage actor, who has a good ability to imitate. Then, for all the scenes with thin bodies, after Evans finished each performance, Linda Dini perfectly imitated all the movements again, so other actors and photographers also had to repeat and record the material. Finally, the digital skin transplant component was used to process the muscles, reduce the face, render the model, and then reconstruct a thin version of Evans. Moreover, Evans himself has a very upright professional attitude and maintains a good relationship with the crew. Taking this play actually means being bound to the role, and the public image must be taken care of. Advertisers, stacker holders, and Marvel will all be shackles on him. Of course, the benefits that come with it are popularity, publicity, exposure, and salary. What you get, you should pay for it. Then it was lunch break time, and several staff members began to distribute food. The meals for the main creators were slightly better and more exquisite, but it was a pity that Evans had no chance to eat. His nutritionist had specially prepared a diet for him besides fitness. For lunch, he should eat salad, bacon, chicken breast, dry oatmeal, and egg white mixed with olive oil. So he could only watch the staff around him eating pizza, grilled chicken, and drinking happy water. Even Liv's tuna salad looked and tasted better than his. Strictly speaking, in the entire crew, except for the financing team, Evans and Liv were the biggest names, but the two were not close. Except for the emotional needs of filming, the two basically did not interact much. In fact, most Hollywood actors' interpersonal relationships are not very good. Only peers can understand peers. Even if there is not much room for competition between male and female actors, I haven't seen many people in the industry sticking together for a long time. After eating for a while, Kevin came over and held a small meeting for the main creators. It was nothing, just a few announcements. First, the filming of the drama in the UK is about to be completed, and it will be transferred to France after it is finished. Second, before leaving, the crew made an appointment with several media newspapers in the UK to take a few sets of photos for them to provide interviews. After saying blah blah, he slipped away. The publicity for this drama has never stopped, but most of them are just some soft news with little momentum. After all, it is not yet time to really make a big push. Providing materials, stills, etc. can attract the attention of die-hard fans. Just leave an impression first, and don't expect much attention. These are trivial matters, but when gathered together, they are also a boost. Moreover, the filming of Captain America did not encounter any major problems, and was completed before the expected plan. Counting the days, it will be completed in mid-December, and the post-production will take about 3 or 4 months, so the schedule will definitely not be missed. The same is true for Thor, but it is ranked later, and has more time. Because the publicity and promotion of these two films are the same as Iron Man and Hulk, there is only less than 7 weeks between them, and they are just released in the same time slot. There are many advantages to doing this, and the stacker holders who have tasted the sweetness agree that there is nothing else, and popularity is easy to accumulate and continue. In a blink of an eye, a few days later, District 9 is here. Chapter 855 will be shown simultaneously in 43 regions. Please subscribe and vote. District 9 is scheduled to be released on November 7th, a not so good but good enough schedule. In fact, even if the situation improves after the government rescues the market, the wealth that has been lost will not be compensated. Many people always say that the pain of life is a stone blocking their steps. As long as they step over it, life will get better. But before they cross it, people will still find ways to please their not so relaxed mood. Therefore, director Lyman's work is obviously a better choice. With his current fame, the early publicity expenses of District 9 have just begun, and the attention it has attracted is already very high. This is the appeal. On an ordinary day, Lyman went to Lionsgate and entered the office of President John Feldmeyer. Lionsgate is also not having a good time this year. The financial backers behind it have suffered losses and have caught up. However, even if they are not as rich and powerful as in previous years and give support, it does not mean that they cannot operate. Those who really can't operate have all gone bankrupt. In those 3 months, August, September, and October, the number of studios that went bankrupt was abnormally large, and those without any blood-making ability collapsed. Although the storm suffered by the entertainment industry is not big, and the audience even has greater demand, not everyone can enjoy the industry dividends. Unfortunately, the two people who met today are still confident that they can get a share of the profits. It is because during the internal preview of District 9, the representatives of the theater said that there was a lot of work to do and gave a lot of screening support, such as the number of openings in 3,550 theaters and a scheduling share of no less than 37%. This also inspired Lionsgate to increase its investment. It was also the first time to guarantee the release, guaranteeing the box office with the regional distributor to reach a certain amount in exchange for a source support, and held simultaneous screenings in 43 regions around the world. Although some places are still not covered and are still waiting and watching, for Lionsgate, this is already the best they can do within their scope. After all, after the previous works brought dividends to the upstream and downstream channel dealers and the interest chain, Lionsgate can grit its teeth and come up with a big wave. There are many advantages of simultaneous global screenings. If there are ambitious works that expect to sell well, it is of course better if you have the strength to do so. In the office, after arriving at Lyman, John entertained him warmly while talking about the more difficult things, which was also the purpose of his invitation. We have always been friends and have had a pleasant cooperation. I won't beat around the bush with you. John took out a contract and continued, the first weekend must be at least $65 million US. This is the premise of guaranteeing cooperation. You know, those people only recognize money and not friendship. This part of the risk is borne by Lionsgate, but correspondingly, you need very effective publicity to make this result profitable, or even better. Lemon nodded. I'm listening. Let's put it this way. They will set the interval according to the performance of the film in the first week, and invest in the resources for the reinvestment. If it does not meet the standards, those people will reduce the number of theaters, and ask us to compensate for the losses. If this happens, it will be very troublesome to operate overseas, but as long as the film is promising enough, I can also guarantee that we will do our best to tap the market potential. Lionsgate did think about it, and made a big bet on District 9. If successful, this is a big deal, and it will definitely make a lot of money, which will make this quarter's financial report look better, and give investors confidence. However, correspondingly, global synchronization also means that overseas stakeholders cannot make an effective response based on the proven performance of the North American market, and they rarely take risks. This is why once the film fails, it will suffer heavy losses, because even a studio like Warner will also bear part of the loss when the project's revenue does not reach the overseas investment. After listening to John's request, Lemon shrugged his shoulders and said that it was no problem. His meaning was very clear. The goals of both parties were the same. They all wanted to make the pie of District 9 bigger, so Lionsgate paid more and endured more, and Firefly had to take the same step. In fact, in Lemon's view, this is not something worth worrying about. The original version had a publicity and production budget, and it was full of plastic smell as soon as there were special effects shots. It made more than $180 million worldwide, including $120 million in North America, accounting for 2/3 of the total score, and $65 million in North America in the first week, which is a little higher than the passing line for works over $100 million. It is actually not difficult, because overseas distributors are also taking risks and giving the theaters that should have been vacated to District 9, then District 9 should prove its value. For example, China Film Group imports 10 films every year, and one of the quotas is given to District 9. Its own emphasis is very precious, so its output must be worthy of this trust. Not to mention, being ranked in the top 10 in North America, it cannot be too low, otherwise it has no distribution value, and it is better to change to a work that has already achieved outstanding results. Of course, District 9 will not enter at all, so it is just an example, because the content in it cannot pass. Some shots are too violent, and there are too bloody scenes. It is rated as an R-rated film in North America. It is conceivable that it will not work. Soon, after a cordial and friendly meeting, both parties knew what they wanted and what the result would be. After Lemon went back, in addition to arranging Lyman to reconnect with Lionsgate, he also arranged more funds for publicity. Next, whether there will be an expected victory depends on the movie. In the afternoon, Corrent and Voss sat in the meeting room of Blue Butterfly Pictures with some uneasiness. He joined the company last month. His original studio went bankrupt, so he had to find another way to make a living. Fortunately, with his many years of distribution experience, he stood out from a bunch of people who wanted to be recruited. I remember that day, the boss, Lyman, said, "Work hard, we will have a bright future, because our company has strong profit means and generous bonuses." To be honest, of course he knew the name of the company he was going to join, but he could only say that he had some expectations about how much salary he would get. Distributors have never taken a fixed salary. In fact, the film and television industry likes to be tied to the project's revenue the most. If the profit is more, they will pay more, and if the profit is less, they will pay less. Of course, the most basic newcomers are excluded. When the meeting started, there were only a dozen people sitting in the room. Most of them were at the contact points in various states, and they were contacted directly by email or phone. They were here only because they were responsible for the promotion of the surrounding areas of Los Angeles, which was the company's headquarters. In fact, the team responsible for the publicity and promotion of District 9 has more than 300 people and the advertiser's own auxiliary personnel. This is already a large-scale staff configuration of Blue Butterfly Pictures. After all, the company is responsible for more than just one movie, and there are other things on hand. Hard advertising, posters, interviews, press releases and the internet, but the latter publicity team has a special department in charge, and there is not much overlap between the two actions. The core of the meeting is still how to impress the audience, arouse the audience's curiosity, and attract them to the cinema. The essence of promotion and publicity is not to create demand, but to discover demand and stimulate demand. Children cannot go to the cinema to watch R-rated movies, but it doesn't matter. Audiences over 16 years old are potential customers. So to put it simply, how to turn potential customers into actual customers is what they will do. It's not troublesome, but tiring. Try to lay out movie-related things in communities and places with high traffic. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 856 Alien Prawn. Subscriptions, votes. Jaden, a common person, would have at least several people responding if he shouted his name without a surname on a busy street. Of course, he is unemployed now. The winter night wind did not feel cool on his face, but it could not extinguish the heat in his heart and calm him down. He is 27 years old, the age to start a family, but he is unemployed. He went to the job market in the morning and spent a day, but got nothing. There were people everywhere, but there were no job opportunities. It was a pity and very sad. He would not show some superficial emotions in the eyes of outsiders, but his heart would still tell him that he did have those unpleasant feelings. Before it was completely dark, Jaden returned home. There was no special police station stationed in his community, so he never stayed in the streets and alleys late at night. After all, the crime rate in the suburbs of New York is very high. Not only knowing, hearing, but even seeing, fighting, cursing, shouting for help, and even gunshots are all part of it. After closing the door, Jaden sat on an old sofa and turned on the TV in a depressed mood. He didn't like watching TV very much, but the extra sound made him feel more comfortable. Then, he inadvertently became interested because of a trailer. Spaceships, ruins, prawns, and serious politicians. Just looking at these, many viewers would think that this is a story about Earthlings defending their country against alien colonists, because since the rise of alien themes, it has basically been this routine, either getting entangled with humans and being friendly. For Jaden, life is already bad, so why not go to see an interesting movie? Although he has lost his job, it does not mean that he has no money or he can still afford the $7 expenditure. The trailer says November 7th, and the director is also a familiar name to him. Although he doesn't like many of the director's works, the themes he likes to watch are mainly action and science fiction, such as Bad Guys and the Lake Monster. He likes love, or revealing certain opinions. For him, it is not as profound as the blow of real experience. He is already very tired, and doesn't want to find unhappiness in the theater. Many people say that Hollywood has a special art theater chain that provides screening thresholds. This is actually true, but art films still cannot be sold in Hollywood and still perform poorly. It's just that art films help to consolidate the brand. To use a less appropriate metaphor, art films are like serious books, while commercial films are refreshing and brainless. The former has a small audience, but good works will be praised, while the latter has a large audience, but cannot be on the stage. When Jadden began to look forward to this movie, he found that advertisements for this movie were everywhere. In fact, the promotion of District 9 has been launched for several weeks. The actors and creators have begun to frequently appear on programs and press releases. They have visited several well-known or unknown radio stations, but Jadden didn't notice it at all due to the anxiety of unemployment. So when he really paid attention, everything he had ignored appeared around him. Walking on the street, the largest billboard was printed with the image of a prawn, and slogans with similar element could be seen on the poster boards at bus stops, parks, and squares. Even most newspapers gave the praise of wait and see, because most media people or film critics who make a living from film and television services, if they rank a list of directors in their hearts, Lyman last has been nominated for the Best Director Oscar twice, won the Best Picture, Best Foreign Language and other international awards and less famous film festivals, which has long proved his talent, and is enough to be in the top 5. People are always like this. Their eyes will be given priority to those celebrities who exude light. Unless the movie is really not good, then it seems not too late to criticize it. By the way, although the influence of paper media is declining, Blue Butterfly Pictures still took out a public relations fee to ask them to promote the movie. Moreover, it will be clear in a few days. November 6th, Thursday morning, around 10 o'clock. In a hotel not far from the Chinese Grand Theater, Lyman and Lyman and others entertained the journalists who came. Tonight's premiere needs the help of these people. If we don't report it, how can we increase the influence and popularity? Furthermore, such first-hand publicity needs to be taken more seriously than the previous preheating, because the public always judges certain things by their first impression. How to transform expectations into motivation for watching movies. Most people will wait and see whether the film's evaluation is as good as it is hyped. Of course, they will pay attention to these evaluations. Although the evaluation of film critics is no longer the most direct reflection of movies' box office performance, if all of them are bad, it will definitely make some movie fans give up their interest in watching movies and lose their intention. Moreover, Lyman's expectations for District 9 are not just box office, so the first impression of media people is more important. They can influence many judges' considerations of the film. In order to let the media and film critics give the film an objective and positive article, in addition to the necessary writing fees and transportation subsidies, Lyman invited Blue Butterfly Pictures to buy advertising space in the newspapers where they work. In other words, it is a temporary relationship with the sponsor, so these people are also very close. Even if it is not for the sake of money, some of the movies made by Lyman himself can still move people. Mr. Last, the film is rated R. Can you talk about this? I'm curious about the reason for the rating. This is a reporter from the Film Pioneer. Unlike other newspapers, they like to stay rooted in the film and television industry and don't report news in other directions. There was a staff member at the MPAA who kindly reminded me that if some violent and bloody scenes in the film could be deleted, the film could be rated PG-13. But what I want to say is that without those scenes, the emotions of the film would not be so strong. Sometimes, violence is a kind of venting, and it is not dispensable. Then how do you view your own film? Or the purpose of filming? Nothing special. I have an inspiration and shoot it. This is what all directors do. What I want to say, and my views are all in District 9. Similar interviews are very familiar to Lyman. He can speak polite words at will. Anyway, it seems that he said a lot, but in fact he said nothing, leaving enough suspense. Because he knows that the more detailed he says, the less surprise the film will give people. For that turning point, the promotional topic formulated did not even include a trace of the protagonist's position. After all, the greatest charm and sublimation of District 9 all come after the transformation, which is also the core setting of the film's success, and of course it cannot be explained in advance. After the interview was successfully concluded, Lyman gave these reporters and media people some small gifts as usual. Everyone accepted it as usual, and they had a certain understanding of the manuscript after the premiere in the evening. Of course, extreme flattery and excessive derogation are actually quite rare among film critics. They themselves still have a certain professional quality, but language is a very clever science. It is obviously the same point of view, but using different modifiers will appear different, isn't it? Chapter 857. Good or bad? It all depends on the picture. Please subscribe and vote. Jadon got on the bus, and after 2 stops, he arrived at a multiplex theater chain owned by AMC. When he arrived, he almost missed the 10 o'clock bus. He lined up to buy tickets and entered the theater, but his seat was not very good. However, the audience seats were full, which made the atmosphere more lively. This situation is not only happening in North America. Fans in the UK, France, Mexico, Italy, and South Africa who are interested in District 9 or the director and creators are all entering the theater to watch it. In other words, under the economic turmoil, fans around the world are in a state of hunger ready to go. After a while, the familiar opening of Firefly floated in Jadon's sight, the theater became quiet, and the story slowly unfolded. District 9 is a science fiction work with a setting first. The film begins with the interior of the MNU building. The protagonist Wickus has just been promoted and is responsible for communicating with the alien shrimp and presiding over the relocation. The movie does not directly describe how the aliens came to Earth, but only says that one day 20 years ago, a huge spaceship suddenly landed over Johannesburg. In the first few weeks, senior government officials around the world were very terrified, but when they found that the spacecraft was just parked there stupidly, without any movement, no people coming in or out, and no threatening behavior, they couldn't help but have some small thoughts. After discussion, they decided to take the initiative to contact. The news at the time described this action very brightly as the first friendly step, but in fact, the joint forces sent by the government directly drove fighter jets and violently cut open the hatch before breaking in. The fear of the outside world made the troops explore cautiously, but they soon felt relieved because there was only a group of skinny shrimps soaked in unknown liquid on the ship. They seemed to have no fighting power and knew to hide when they met humans. In the narration, the introduction continued. Following the pictures and news, 20 years of research flashed quickly. This kind of side confirmation is used instead of a straightforward narrative because the content of the shrimp is very large, taking into account the length of time and raising the sense of substitution. A female reporter holding a microphone was still talking. From the time we discovered its traces to now, we still don't know what their intentions are for the Earth. But the prawns can't communicate and are somewhat aggressive. For safety, they will be relocated to the 10th district. The camera came to the MNU building again. As the timeline changed, the prawns were isolated, sent to the park for exhibition, and finally hated by humans. The image of the prawns became very ugly against the backdrop of the successive reports of injuries and the not so beautiful image of crustaceans. Especially from the perspective of humans, the prawns do not engage in production, but only know how to destroy. Therefore, the government's attitude towards them also placed the isolation area more and more remote, from the 1st district in the center of the desert to the 9th district in the slums of South Africa, and continued to migrate to the outside world. From the TV news in between, the audience also understood that these prawns should be kept away from humans, because these prawns often violated laws and disciplines, causing frequent violent conflicts in the 9th district, and the scale of demonstrations became larger and larger. The government could not stand this trouble. When the relocation news was confirmed, the camera was in Wicker's personal interview again. This is the biggest operation that MNU will carry out, and everyone believes that it will be very successful because we have the army to escort us. Our mission is to transfer 1.8 million shrimps to a farther and more remote place, a better and safer place for them to live. There, they can stay well, and the South Africans don't have to endure the shrimps destroying their hometowns, and everyone can live a comfortable and happy life. Wickes described the operation with a happy face. After all, for him, his father-in-law gave him such an easy position to make meritorious contributions in order to support him, so of course he must grasp it well. Moreover, Wickes didn't deal with shrimps often, and his impression of shrimps was all built on the slogans prohibiting contact with shrimps and some negative news. Of course, He didn't like shrimps, even if the essence of the operation was a violent expulsion with full armor. For him, it was just so poetic. On the day of the official operation, Wickes seemed very excited, and he didn't stop talking, even after putting on the bulletproof vest. But as soon as they arrived at the 9th district, the scene became a mess. After all, it is certainly not easy to relocate 1.8 million shrimps who cannot communicate. There are still people living in the 9th district, and there is a TV station nearby that broadcasts the whole process live for profit. Their relocation behavior is watched by many viewers, so of course it must be legal and reasonable. So at the beginning, Wickes took the relocation documents to ask local people or shrimps to sign, and use the shrimps' favorite cat food as a gift for negotiation. The shrimps really like cat food, but they refuse to sign. When they are forced, they will get angry, which always scares Wickes. The shrimps have lived here for more than 20 years. Although they have their own language that humans cannot understand, some gestures and behaviors can be understood by both parties. The shrimps even do business with the gangsters in the 9th district, exchanging the money and materials they picked up, or robbed for cat food. This scene is actually a bit funny. The fierce looking gangster pointed a gun, and the shrimp shook his head and followed the gesture, and then the two sides made a deal. After the failure, the leader of the army became impatient and ordered the bulldozer to move to the iron house at the edge. These are all illegal buildings. We can proceed without signatures, the leader said to Wickes. Not far away, a shrimp made incomprehensible sounds, which made people feel its anxiety because it kept yelling something to Wickes and the leader next to him, looking very angry. Next to this ugly shrimp, there was another underage shrimp who was holding a rag doll and looking at his home disappearing blankly. The MNU demolition team didn't take it seriously. Wickes, who was taught, also felt that this method was very effective. Otherwise, he would never be able to complete the task. So he said to the accompanying camera, "I guess that guy is saying that this is its territory, but this planet belongs to humans, and the shrimp is the invader." After saying that, he waved his fist in a vicious manner, pretending to hit the shrimp. The shrimp over there had to pull the child and quickly slipped away. Wickes expressed his thoughts to the camera again. "See, the shrimps are just a bunch of weaklings. With so many of us, they don't dare to get angry. If you have a gun in your hand, they will even raise their hands high. This is very interesting." But during the demolition operation, there were not only people who watched silently. When they encountered the shrimps that resisted, the soldiers in the team would quickly shoot. When they shot for the first time, Wickes shouted that there was no need to do this, just drive them away. But the head of the soldiers, the colonel wearing sunglasses, explained lightly, "They are just some bugs. If they don't obey, they will be crushed to death." Later, Wickes gradually got used to this behavior. After this section, the image of humans and shrimps seemed to have reversed again. Because the audience is very easy to sympathize with the weak party, when the shrimps do evil, the audience thinks that re-isolation is a good thing, but killing and death evoke something that is not easy to detect. At least, Jaden felt that his heart was beating heavily, and the audience was silent, as if it was called conscience. Chapter 858, The Metamorphosis of Wickes. Subscriptions. Vote. Human psychology is actually very contradictory. When the audience subconsciously labels the shrimp as scum, they don't have much sympathy for the tamed animal treatment such as experiments, isolation research, and exhibitions. But when they find that MNU and the army are also doing inhumane things, after entering the 9th district, they feel sorry for the shrimp, as they are not that bad. This kind of psychology can actually be described by a very appropriate illusion. A gentleman stays away from the kitchen. Its explanation is of course not to stay away from the kitchen, but the conversation between Mencius and King Zuin of Key. Mencius said, "I once heard someone tell me a story. It was said that one day, Your Majesty, you were sitting in the palace and someone was leading a cow past the palace. You saw it and asked, 'Where are you leading the cow?' The man leading the cow replied, 'We are going to kill it and take its blood to sacrifice to the bell.' You said, 'Let it go. I can't bear to see it trembling with fear, as if it was sentenced to death for no crime.' The man leading the cow asked, 'Then you won't sacrifice to the bell?' You said, 'How can you not sacrifice to the bell? Use a sheep instead of the cow. I don't know if this happened. After King Zuan of Qi nodded, Mencius said, if your majesty feels sorry for it being slaughtered for no crime, then what is the difference between cows and sheep? King Zuan smiled and said, yes, I don't even know what kind of mentality this is. It means not killing cows, but killing sheep. Then came Mencius's summary. What he wanted to express was that a gentleman stays away from the kitchen, but it refers to a psychological state of not being able to bear killing. That is the mentality of King Zuan of Qi, who exchanged sheep for cattle, because he saw with his own eyes how the cattle were about to be killed, but did not see with his own eyes how the sheep were about to be killed. So he simply said, out of sight, out of mind. Back to the movie. It was the previous description of how the shrimps brought trouble to humans, but did not describe how they were persecuted by humans, so of course the feelings were different. You see, it was just a subtle adjustment of the angle, and many positions were no longer consistent. In the audience, Jadden realized later that this was indeed not a conventional routine alien movie. How could aliens be so miserable? This gap is also a highlight of District 9. On the big screen, demolition continues. Wickus came to a room and pushed the door to see a dozen shrimp eggs that had not yet hatched. He asked the camera to get closer, showed off his knowledge, and then accidentally killed a few shrimp babies. Then, when Wickus came out, the army took out flamethrowers to eliminate them in batches. In another room, Wickus discovered the weapons used by the shrimps. When the spacecraft was explored, the first batch of shrimps brought a lot of weapons and equipment that were different from the Earth's technology. However, for humans, these weapons cannot be used by them. They are all bound to the shrimp tribe and can only be used by shrimps. What's more interesting is that the alien shrimps are a group with strict hierarchy. After losing their leader, the shrimps can't organize their actions at all. Many scholars speculate that the reason why they are stranded on Earth is probably because of an accident. They are a group of interstellar refugees. The camera turned, and a shrimp in a red vest was looking for something in the ruins with a child. He mentioned a liquid in his conversation. The shrimp was very lively. After searching for a while, he happily held a cylindrical object and handed it to the red vest. Then, the red vest took it into the house, carefully poured out a light blue liquid from it, and after extraction, injected it into another test tube, muttering in his mouth, 20 years of hard work will succeed. The audience was wondering if this red vest seemed to have some wisdom, and Wickus and his party just arrived at the cabin. Hearing the movement, the red vest quickly hid the test tube and escaped from the back door. Wickus knocked on the door, but didn't get a response. He pushed the door open with a little force, entered the room and looked around, trying to find some novel materials to record. He was obviously like a rap host shooting a vlog. After a while of searching, Wickus found an unusual iron box from the back of the table. He fiddled with it for a while, smiled at the camera, and took out the test tube prepared by the red vest. With a sizzle, Wickus accidentally touched the switch, and was sprayed with black liquid on his face. He felt a little embarrassed, and told his colleagues that the previous part should be cut out. When he went out, he was inexplicably attacked by a yellow shrimp, which seemed to be a companion of the red vest group. Wickus dodged in embarrassment, and when the bald colonel next to him shot and killed the shrimp, his left hand was also injured. Wickus, who was enduring the pain, looked a little pale. When the doctor on the team bandaged and treated him, he repeatedly emphasized that he was fine. It's not that Wickus was pretending to be cool, but he had just been promoted and was in the rising stage of his career. He didn't want to be transferred away from the front line of work because of the injury to his left hand. After a while, the wounded Wickus came to the room again and met the red vest, who was a little irritable after returning to the room and couldn't find the test tube. Wickus looked at the red vest shrimp and felt that it was different from most shrimps. Its body and demeanor were more flexible. Just when he wanted to ask someone to catch it, he vomited continuously and was helped by his colleagues to get on the car back to the headquarters. On the way, after vomiting for a long time, Wickus was not so uncomfortable anymore, so he told the driver that he wanted to go to the small shop in front to buy some food to fill his stomach, but when he ate the bread he bought, he had a black nosebleed. At this time, Wickus was a little panicked. After returning to the MNU headquarters, the nails on his left hand also fell off lightly, as if this thing did not belong to him in the first place. Vickers trembled all over and vaguely felt that something was wrong with his body. In the 9th district, the gang boss was taking advantage of the demolition to stockpile alien weapons. He is a man with dreams. It is not a big deal to be arrogant in the slums, but if he wants to expand outward, conflicts are inevitable. To seize territory, he must show force. He has been doing business with the shrimps for so long, and he knows a lot of things. For example, the shrimps will make their own unique alien technology, but they are stupid and don't use it. It seems that they only regard weapon making as a job, not a means of conquest. He even bought a complete mecha from the shrimps. Therefore, as long as he can find a way to control alien weapons, his force value can be improved by several levels. But after so long of experimenting, he still can't find the way. A younger brother may have been exposed to some Oriental culture, so he suggested to the boss to complement the shape with the shape. What does it mean? It means eating the shrimps and accumulating their ability to control weapons. The black boss is also fighting for his dream. The shrimps are crustaceans, and the meat doesn't look very appetizing, but he still gritted his teeth and nodded. The camera turned. After returning home from the headquarters, Vickers was shocked again. It turned out that his wife had organized a party for him to celebrate the start of his new job. Vickers endured the discomfort in his body and forced himself to smile to entertain relatives and friends. But when he was cutting the cake, he couldn't hold it anymore, and a mouthful of black blood spurted out, and he fainted on the ground. When he woke up again, Vickers either comforted himself by mumbling to the doctor, "I don't know what happened recently, I always feel something is wrong. My left hand nails have become loose, black blood has flowed from my nose, and I always feel like vomiting." When he said this, he didn't notice that the doctor who helped him cut the bandages was shaking with his hands and sweating on his forehead. Even though he had seen all kinds of strange patients and cases, he was never more touched this time. What did he see? A pair of pincer-like structures grew on a human's left hand. Oh my god. Oh my god. Such a direct and sudden shot also scared the audience in the theater. Jaden couldn't help but move back, closer to the back of the chair, looking forward to the next plot. He hoped that the subsequent plot development steps would not disappoint him, considering the rich content and pseudo-documentary-like realism of this movie, especially the unusual opening and description, and the more unpredictable turn until now, tortured the burning of the soul. The voiceover in his ears was messy, surging and deducing the plot, and Vickers' life began to fall apart. Chapter 859, What is right and what is wrong? Please subscribe and vote. What is this? What happened to my hand? What happened to my hand? Doctor, what is this? Vickers also noticed something was wrong, and he jumped up from the bed, shouting out of control. Take a deep breath. Don't be nervous. Calm down. The doctor pressed Vickers and put a breathing mask on him. Vickers' horrified eyes, uneasy calmness, and the interlaced vision of the white walls, the ground and the ceiling were very shocking, and finally drowned in Vickers' murmur of "call my wife." Because the confidentiality work was done well, only now did some professional film critics react. It seems to be metamorphosis. Genius creativity. Reversal of position. Unlike the audience's first shock, they flashed a hint of excitement. Those past film watching experiences told them that they might witness the birth of a classic movie tonight. Kotick, a columnist and film critic of The Hollywood Observer, took a deep breath. How should a human who once persecuted the shrimps and the leader of the relocation team face the shrimp tribe? This kind of setting, the expected sense of drama is simply fascinating. The hospital entered a state of martial law, and MNU dispatched armed police to transport Vickers to the laboratory in the basement of the headquarters. MNU has been studying prawns, but there has been no good progress in the past 20 years. After finally finding material like Vickers, they certainly did not think about how to cure him, but wanted to deduce the cause of his mutation and the various parameters after the mutation. Here, Vickers saw a pile of prawn corpses, all kinds of subtle dissections, which made people's scalps numb. In fact, they also want to master those alien equipment like the gangster boss. When they found that the mutated Wickus could really control it, the senior management of MNU was simply delighted through monitoring. In the eyes of big men including Wickus' father-in-law, Wickus is a walking key to spying on miracles, completely ignoring the fact that Wickus is being deeply tortured. His faith was destroyed by the mutation, and the more he was squeezed, the deeper he sank into the abyss. Gentlemen, we don't have much time. He has reached the critical stage of transformation. His DNA is a perfect combination of human and alien shrimp, but the problem is that as the infection expands, this transformation is permanent, and the genes belonging to humans are suppressed and become less and less active. A researcher reported around the week Wickus. Will he become a shrimp? Wickus' father-in-law asked. Yes, but it doesn't matter what he becomes. What matters is what we can get from him. Tissues, bone marrow, blood. His body is a gold mine, and biotechnology that can be desired by all governments. Help me, don't let them do this, Wickus said to his father-in-law with difficulty. But the father-in-law just perfunctorily, don't worry, I will take care of it. In his words, he almost gave up the possibility of Wickus living as a human. After returning home, the father-in-law said to his daughter with a lonely face that Wickus was too poisoned to be saved, so he should forget about him. For the father-in-law, if his daughter finds another man, even if he is not as good as Wickus, he can support him to work in MNU. Besides, their company will soon get the most valuable biotechnology, and he will have more resources. But when the researchers were about to dissect Wickus, he broke free from his restraints and used the stolen alien weapons to break out violently. Once this happened, MNU sent people to search all over the place and guide public opinion. The unfortunate Wickus had just escaped from the tiger's den, but found that the human world could no longer accommodate him. TV programs and print media reports said that he was a mentally ill person and had done unspeakable things with the shrimp in the 9th district. Once this basin of dirty water was poured, Wickus had no chance of returning to normal, and his hope of returning to human society was completely killed. Because when he walked on the street, he would be reported by citizens, and felt that he was disgusting. When he called, friends and relatives also thought he was crazy, and wanted to avoid him. Under the coverage of the traditional media, Wickus had no choice but to hide in the 9th district. After a night of terror, Wickus, whose nerves were stretched to the limit, could only line up to buy cat food from the gangsters like Daksha. The gang members didn't watch the news, but thought that Wickus was mentally ill and didn't go out to make a living, but hung out with Daksha. Staring at the eyes that were regarded as idiotic, Wickus bought cat food and sat on the sandy ground beside him to fill his stomach. After finishing the meal, his teeth were almost all gone. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was his wife. Wickus repeatedly explained that he didn't do that with Daksha and begged his wife to believe him. But his wife's hesitation finally made this man desperate. He didn't cry, but just sat on the ground. After hanging up the phone, he roared and vented, running and jumping in the open space. Similarly, he hated his mutation and decided to have a quick death, so he wanted to break his left hand. But this hand had already merged with him. As soon as he broke off a finger, he was in so much pain that the action failed. Wickus was a ruthless man, but he had not evolved into a wolf slayer. He covered his chest and stood up with difficulty. Then he found a helicopter marked with MNU circling over the 9th district in the sky and hurried to a house for shelter. The clever thing was that this house was the beginning of his mutation. When Wickus saw the red vest, he seemed to have thought of something and asked it to help him. He also showed it his left hand. The red vest shrimp immediately thought of the source fluid he had collected with great effort. Just as he was about to gesture, Wickus fainted because of excessive bleeding from chopping his hand. The red vest called his companions and dragged Wickus to the basement of the room to bandage and treat him. When Wickus woke up, he found himself in a cockpit with many facilities. The red vest and his companions gestured and drew, roughly meaning that they were now in the control cabin of the spacecraft, and the mutations on his body only needed to be reproduced to take back the source fluid as fuel for the spacecraft to start and return to the mothership, where there was a way to treat Wickus. After Wickus understood what was meant, he was overjoyed and felt that he was saved because he remembered that he had brought the tube of reagent with him and it was taken away by the researchers during the experiment. As long as he went back to the MNU headquarters, he would have a chance to find it back. At night, Wickes took off his clothes and found that not only his arms were changing, but his back was also covered with shells. He knew that he could not wait any longer and had to take a risk. In order to track Wickes' hiding, the father-in-law asked his daughter to make another phone call after knowing that Wickes had contacted her, thus locking Wickes' location. But they did not expect that Wickes had decided to break into the MNU headquarters, and in order to get weapons, he went to the gangster boss first. This guy did not gain the ability to control weapons after eating the shrimp meat, so when he saw Wickes' left hand, he seemed to see the dawn and wanted to cut off Wickes' left hand and eat it. In a hurry, Wickes picked up an alien gun next to him and pulled the trigger. The powerful force immediately made the boss's subordinates dare not show their heads. In response, the black boss expressed his sincere envy. "How did you grow this hand? What did you do? Tell me. I want an arm like yours." While shouting, Wickes took a woven bag with a bunch of weapons and left, leaving the black boss still shouting, "Damn it, I'll find you. I will definitely catch you." On the other side, because the phone call was tracked, the mercenary troops sent by MNU quickly went to the 9th district to arrest people, but they were empty-handed, because Wickes was fully armed and rushed into the MNU headquarters. Wickes and the red vest shrimp holding the alien artifact were simply invincible. With powerful firepower and rapid charging speed, they rushed into the underground experimental base without any strong obstacles. When Wickes got the reagent, Red Vest was in the middle of a pile of shrimp experimental materials, feeling very sad. Even the hearts of the audience seemed to be trembling. Luzon once said, "People's sorrows and joys are not connected." This sentence refers more to, we can't share the joys and sorrows of strangers, even if we can do it on the surface. We know in our hearts that we are deceiving ourselves, but the charm of film and television lies in this, even if there is only a moment of emotional resonance. After getting the reagent and returning to District 9, Wickes asked how long it would take to cure his disease. At this time, after seeing his brothers and sisters being experimented on like that, Red Vest had made up his mind to go back to the mother planet for help, saying that it might be 3 years. Wickes felt that he had been deceived. Not to mention 3 years, he didn't want to wait for 3 days. In a rage, he knocked out Red Vest directly and wanted to go to the mothership to find the cure himself. But when the cockpit rose from the ground, Red Vest's child was also there, and it rose to the air. It was bombed down by MNU with a missile. Seeing that the 20-year plan to go home was about to fail, Red Vest knelt on the ground in despair. The troops captured 2 people, but did not notice the hidden shrimp. Wickes was sitting in the prison van, also in deep despair. Unexpectedly, the gangsters came. The gangster boss, who was irritated by the arm, ordered his subordinates to fight the MNU troops directly, with the purpose of capturing Wickes. After a hard fight, the gangsters who had the geographical and personnel advantages soon carried Wickes back to the gangsters' camp happily. The gangster pretended to be a asterisk, but soon ordered his subordinates to cut off his left hand and cook it. He didn't want to wait a moment. Who knew that the alien mecha in the corner of the camp had a built-in program that could activate and protect its own kind? After Wickes mutated, he should be one of us. So the subordinates in the camp suffered heavy casualties, and the gangster boss was also shot in the head. Outside, the Red Vest was re-escorted by the MNU hired armed personnel who came again. When Wickes appeared driving the mecha, he was scolded by the bald colonel again. Wickes only wanted to heal himself, and did not intend to be an enemy of humans. He was about to escape, but he could not bear the cries of Red Vest, who was obsessed with going home. This mecha could hear the voices of its kind within range. The desperate and sad eyes of Red Vest flashed through Wickes' mind, which made Wickes, who still had a conscience, struggle. Under the torment, his position finally shifted to the side of the shrimp. After all, he was the one who witnessed those experiments with his own eyes. The climax of the film was also when Wickes drove the mecha to escort Red Vest home. This transition was not abrupt, and the arc of the character creation was portrayed steeply and smoothly. Wickes was originally a person with desires but alive. He wanted to use the shrimp to heal him, but at the critical moment he could also understand the urgency of going home, because he no longer had a home. "You go straight, I'll hold them back." No, we are companions. I won't leave you behind. You have to take your child home. Don't let my hard work go in vain. Do you understand? I'll come back to find you. Go before I change my mind. Wickes shouted excitedly. 3 years, I promise you. 3 years. Red Vest made a promise to Wickes, who was controlling the mecha, and then ran to the crashed cockpit. Wickes and the mecha smiled with mixed feelings when he saw this scene, and then fought with MNU without restraint, which even made the audience feel very happy. This was a pure violent catharsis, a catharsis that Wickes had experienced so many panic days and nights, and it was a reckless catharsis. The effect was more refreshing than the slap in the face of the divorce. At least, he defended his conscience. At the end of the movie, the TV broadcast this historic moment live. The huge spaceship that had been parked over Johannesburg, South Africa for more than 20 years was started and flew to an unknown place. And what about Wickes? His deeds will always be used as a negative teaching material. Even MNU's bad deeds have been made public. In the peaceful music, a green shrimp with a finger missing on its left hand sat in the garbage dump of the 10th district. In the distance was a dilapidated iron house, and it was tinkering with a small gadget in detail. It looked at the finished steel flower in its hand, raised its head, and looked up at the sky, as if waiting for something. What was it? It had forgotten. Chapter 860 Double Satisfaction, Subscriptions, Tickets. It was an ordinary weekend, but it became not so ordinary because of a movie. Before the release of District 9, the North American film market was strictly speaking a bit sluggish. The slightly better performance was Disney's Best Young Animation Bolt, which earned $26.23 million in the first week. Looking at the box office alone, compared with Disney's previous popular animated films, it is actually nothing. But if you add a premise that this is a 3D production produced by the Pixar team after joining the Disney camp to help Disney's original animation department, it is quite good. It can be said that perhaps this Bolt still failed to achieve the box office dominance of Disney's animated films in the mid-1990s, but at least it shows that the quality of Disney's animation department has indeed made considerable progress. Well, Bolt has a good reputation, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 85% freshness. New York. 3 landmark luxury theaters less than 5 blocks away joined forces to contribute to a noisy day. District 9 started at 10 AM, and its theaters began to run non-stop. Even at 7 PM, when dinner was about to begin, the vast crowds of moviegoers brought joy to the bosses behind these theaters with their wallets. The audience of the previous show left, and the audience of the next show arrived. After watching the movie, they couldn't help but join the discussion, which continued to increase the popularity and influence of the movie. The reason for this grand occasion is, of course, that moviegoers saw a shocking classic movie. To put it another way, it is also because the people are pent up by the current life and are eager to vent. So compared to tenderness, they need more extreme and radical emotions. The change of Wickes' position before and after, the indifference under the MNU's mask, including the bloody shots of several battles, are enough to keep the audience's energy in a highly concentrated state between the collisions, and they can't stop at all. When such emotions reach the commanding heights, the pain of life is temporarily forgotten. Although it is self-deception, it is also the best mental regulator. You know, in addition to containing ideology and regional culture, film and television works also have the function of entertainment, which is not actually criticism. Until the sun slowly set on the horizon, Jadon, who still went to the job market after watching the movie and did not find a job, walked towards home. Today, he is more calm than any time he was rejected in the past, because his mind has been temporarily covered by District 9. What he thinks about in his mind is not work problems, but various scenes in the movie. The future is always bright, not bad. On average, it is only a little lower than the hot-selling blockbusters in the summer. At Blue Butterfly Pictures, Lyman put down the phone after asking about the advance attendance rate and comparing the real-time feedback collected from the audience, and said happily, "Does the distribution of moviegoers have a prototype? It's too early to build a model now. Look at the audience feedback. 90% of them are fans of you and Edward Norton." Such evaluation data is easy to be overestimated. Liam continued to nag, "At least wait until next week's box office trend comes out, and then do another round of market research to roughly estimate the adjustment direction of subsequent publicity." But at least one thing is known: the first weekend box office of District 9 will not be bad. It seems that the advanced screenings are good. Lemon looked at him. 323 theaters, 8.55 million in box office, and an average revenue of over 25,000 per theater. In addition, it has captured the hearts of die-hard fans, so at least it has a preliminary reputation, and the basic basis here. Liam imagined, District 9 feet is sure to top the weekly charts in its first week. There are no noteworthy strong competitors in the same period, and the audiences are basically inconsistent. But you have to know that Bolt also topped the charts with 26.23 million last weekend. In order to attract more audiences, to support and achieve a sufficiently impressive box office record, we have to strengthen guidance and publicity. As long as you have a plan. Lemon waved his hand. I won't participate in roadshows or programs. You let Edward lead the team, and their agency will cooperate. Edward doesn't like to participate in variety shows or talk shows either. He's too arrogant, and those TV stations don't invite him very often. He doesn't have much sense of variety, and it's easy for the arrangement to be boring. In fact, it is not a good thing for an actor to have too much exposure. It is easy for the audience to stereotype him. Of course, celebrities are an exception. If they don't pay attention to establishing their roles, exposure can easily increase their income. Then we should actively promote it. He is not opposed to it. Besides, how are the online reviews? The online publicity department has already made efforts, and the effect is good. The situation in this regard is very optimistic. The effect is indeed outstanding. Just like in the previous life, because of the higher opening enthusiasm, film critics and audiences were all caught up in the huge proposition of District 9, and the discussion between them soon became an existence that could not be ignored. Because District 9 cannot be simply defined as good or bad, the racial segregation, anti-war, stance, and conscience involved in it can all be unfolded. Is the bald colonel a bad guy because he killed a lot of shrimps? No, from the perspective of human beings, his death is defined as a hero. Even if his wife and daughter are sad, they think he is right. So is Wickus a good person? Yes and no. He is just a poor man. Human society cannot tolerate him. He is not a natural shrimp, and there is also a gap. His existence is to show both sides from a perspective outside the free group, to see the truth that was not seen before. The rare light of humanity in Wickus' life bloomed in his ugly mutation process. He is not a savior, and he was labeled a traitor until the end, but he followed his heart. Ironically, all this was awakened by being excluded. Based on this deduction, the audience cannot form a single impression of MNU, the gang, and the big shrimp. Their existence is based on the position of a certain thing, the demand for interests or survival, and the complex sense is formed. In other words, District 9 can be seen as a cult work, or as a cool film that suppresses first and then praises. The picture is exquisite, the sense of substitution is strong, the battle scene is hot, the weapon technology is novel, and the plot is smooth. These are all advantages. So after the first day of the release, it was not the media reviews that broke out first, but the network. Edward's acting is so great. It's doubly satisfying to work with my favorite actor and my favorite director. It's hard to imagine that after a formulaic movie like Iron Man, Lemon immediately presented a masterpiece of amazing depth. I declare that my favorite list of movies directed by Lemon has changed from Bad Guys to District 9. It's so damn good, one viewing is not enough. Although it is another movie that abuses the protagonist, Lemon's die-hard fans have long been accustomed to it. On the contrary, because of the dramatic sense and even the subtle twists and turns, the role of Wickus, interpreted by Edward Norton, an alternative actor, is deeply rooted in the minds of the audience and is unforgettable. Classic movies will inevitably give birth to classic screen characters. Edward's die-hard fans are very happy that their favorite actor has finally starred in a movie that seems to have good reputation and results. For a time, on the IMDb actor topic list, Edward rushed into the top 5 at a rocket speed, ranking after Christian Bale. Chapter 861 ignites the spark of the market. Please subscribe and vote. On the internet, major portals and film review websites are accumulating the popularity of District 9. The 93% freshness of Rotten Tomatoes and more than 500 comments are reflected in more than 1,200 related posts on Yahoo Community, more than 30,000 replies, and the click rate on the first day of the release exceeded 100,000. The popularity easily surpassed the discussion topics brought about by Bolt after more than a week of screening. On IMDb, a website with the most users focusing on film and television, a group of fans who have watched District 9 excitedly handed in their ratings. On the homepage, 425,418 viewers participated in the rating in 3 days, and the score remained at 8.9. The number of top 250 users participating was 112,456, and the score was 8.5, which made it into the top 30 in film history, ranking alongside Apocalypse Now, Saving Private Ryan, Memento, and Doctor Strangelove. Of course, IMDb's top 250 ranking is not the truth. In such a voting, that is not so objective, the power of fans always prevails. Especially since the audiences themselves have a love for movies and a personal worship of the director, fans only need a little reason to give full marks. Just like Quentin and Nolan's movies will get higher and higher scores as they become more famous. Memento was only 8.0 points before, and The Dark Knight soared to 8.5. Pulp Fiction, as a slightly mature postmodern work, was even more praised. Is this very objective? It can also be seen from the distribution of scores that District 9 also has a large number of people who scored full marks. Isn't this because of the love for Lyman's past works, plus the quality of District 9 itself? Some impulsive evaluations. District 9 is excellent. After making up for the lack of production funds, the pictures and shots are more durable and easy to watch, but it is by no means perfect. However, the critics are still very happy that District 9 was released in such a period, and the praise is overflowing. It continues the exploration of the characters, but lacks some warmth, and is still ironic, but the irony is hidden behind the class stance, which further highlights Wicker's despair. The whole movie starts with the alien shrimp falling to the earth. Unlike the previous strong invasion of alien races, the shrimp may be the most unorganized difference creation, showing a bloody indifference. In addition, the background of this film is quite similar to the apartheid period in South Africa. You can see the shrimp as a struggle history of black people in Johannesburg, and there is nothing awkward about it. The intention is very big and full of sincerity. There is not only a satire on the prevalence of utilitarianism, but also a portrayal of the attitude of the shrimp in the 20 years of the market. What is more rare is the sense of reality in the lens, the pseudo-documentary style tracking shooting. As 2008 is coming to an end, this movie makes the whole Hollywood feel ashamed. Chicago Tribune, a film with advanced ideas, a fable about life. The New York Times, it turns out that science fiction does not have to be completely entertaining. The Hollywood Reporter, on November 10th, the first weekend box office of District 9 was released. After the advanced screenings and the first day, it earned $29.87 million, $22.58 million on Saturday, and $20.75 million on Sunday. The first week cumulatively reached $73.2 million, exceeding the $65 million required by overseas film companies, an increase of nearly 12%, and completing the expected market indicators. Let's put it this way, the size of the North American movie box office basically determines the height of overseas interests. Only very few movies are not popular in China but popular abroad, such as Loch Ness Monster, Legend of the Deep. Moreover, everyone in the film industry knows that the overseas revenue sharing of theaters and channel dealers is higher, and it is not as profitable as in North America. Even if the overseas box office is higher than the domestic box office, it is better to convert it into the cumulative box office in North America. Inside the Firefly building, Lyman walked in with the latest weekly chart data. This week's champion is of course the highly praised and popular District 9. However, apart from this film, Bolt dropped less than 30% in the second week, earning $16.92 million and ranking second. The rest, such as Warner's Gran Turismo and Universal's Four Christmases, followed closely behind. The cumulative market of the top 10 works exceeded $128 million, 4% higher than the same period last year. Without counting other works, it can be said that District 9 supported the North American market this week because it directly occupied half of the market share. It should be no problem for District 9 to hit 400 million, right? Lemon asked. Production costs plus publicity expenses, if calculated simply, 200 million in North America and 200 million overseas can make a profit. You are too unmotivated. The most optimistic forecasting agency has given a result of 300 million in North America and 600 million worldwide. Lyman replied happily. According to the current popularity and word of mouth trend, District 9 quickly swept male audiences under the age of 40. Many fans who like cult movies are supporting District 9. Theater operators have reached a consensus that it should be screened more, and the number of screens should be increased to 3,800. The plot is smooth, and both those who like depth and those who don't can enjoy it. The market is optimistic about it, and the critics are also praising it, and they are calling on you to make more thoughtful works. Lyman briefly summarized the reasons why the film is popular. The return rate of fans is very high. Those who like it very much can't get enough of it. Therefore, there should be no obstacles to getting another high-grossing and well-received work in your directorial career. That's good. Lemon was a little happy, but don't relax the publicity and guidance. Let them stick to it for a while. Don't worry, it will be busy in the first month during the hot release stage. Edward Norton's agency asked me to express gratitude to you. The big cities in various states of the United States have been on the road since the first day of the release. Without Lemon, Edward Norton, who is the most accepted by fans in the whole movie, of course took on the burden and spent every day in the car. Although a little tired, Edward himself is still very professional and has been cooperating with the work. In addition, District 9 is considered the best movie in his acting career, which also gives him motivation. To be honest, this guy is quite unlucky. His arrogant personality is nothing. Johnny Depp is still recognized as a trouble on the set, but has anyone stopped his charm? So, what is the situation with Edward Norton? His family is rich, and he acts purely out of interest. He is also a bit stubborn. The investors definitely don't like actors who are troublesome to shoot and have little appeal. You can see it from the movies he has taken. He doesn't have very good resources. Most of them are chosen because he needs strong acting skills. The biggest benefit of District 9 for the leading actor is that it broadens the priority of film contracts and allows the investors to increase his weight. Actors need to have achievements, and this is the case in the industry. In other words, a movie that has a good chance of breaking 500 million and has the hope of breaking 600 million can help Edward Norton get rid of the impression that he is strong, but the movie has little box office. However, next week we will face 007, Quantum of Solace, released by Columbia. You know, this series has a lot of fans. With the blessing of sentimental memories, it is coming in strong, and we may not be able to maintain our weekly championship. I remember that this movie often uses up most of its screening potential within 2 or 3 weeks. After all, 22 films have been made. The inherent framework and routines, Bond girls, luxury cars, pretense, these are all indispensable element. Except for fans of the series, few audiences will watch it. So once the accumulated fans are almost consumed, 007 will plummet. However, this series of movies has always had a lot of sponsors, and it doesn't cost much to produce, so the profit margin is not small. It's okay, just take care of our own movies. The audiences of 007 and District 9 don't overlap. Did you start promoting in chapter 862? Please subscribe and vote. November 13th, Thursday, ICM's office in Los Angeles. At 2 p.m., after a short meeting, ICM senior management formulated a packaging plan for Edward Norton. That's it. Try to coordinate your schedules. For the rest, I will let the executive team responsible for the promotion of District 9 keep in touch with your people. Both parties benefited from this matter. One wanted to promote the artist while the film was showing well, and the other wanted ICM to give more resources to increase the popularity. Therefore, the atmosphere of the chat was still very pleasant. Basically, they were all considering getting the results they wanted within the appropriate scope. Don't worry, Mr. Last. The people of ICM were actually quite surprised that District 9 had such an excellent reputation and good results. After talking about the business, Lemon was about to leave when a gold medal agent from ICM came over. I heard that Warner's third Batman reboot wants to add the role of Catwoman to increase the Linux reserve. So, can we talk? The other party was polite and directly stated his intentions. Warner Brothers itself is hesitating, and has even considered a large number of related characters such as Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. You know, the Batman IP can easily bring other characters to the forefront. Isn't that the case with the Joker? The other party has eyes and ears on this matter, and Lemon is not surprised. Since The Dark Knight soared to the sky last year, allowing Warner Brothers to eat a very sweet copyright cake, the writing of the third script will definitely be put on the agenda and taken very seriously. Nolan himself felt that the story was a bit unsuccessful, but Warner Brothers was unwilling to let go, so the two sides also reached an agreement to let Warner Brothers' screenwriter department determine the scope of filming first. In addition to benefiting Batman, who was the most successful character in The Dark Knight, of course, Heath Ledger's Joker. Even if there is no excessive marketing and worship, such a classic screen character is still talked about by fans. Let's put it this way, Heath Ledger is now taking on films other than art films. If he is the male lead, the reported salary of 13 to 15 million is very reasonable and meets the judging standards. After The Dark Knight, Joker's peripherals sold very well. In addition to comic fans, the actor's own interpretation is of course a great plus. These data can be seen by paying a little attention. For example, at the end of 2007, Heath Ledger called Lemon and said that he participated in Overture Pictures' Justified Murder, working with his favorite actor Robert De Niro. At that time, he received a salary of 13 million. The movie tells the story of an old detective and a rookie detective involved in a serial murder case. In other words, for the third Batman, Warner also wants to promote related screen characters on the basis of Batman and harvest fans' wallets. Among them, Warner also considered letting the Joker and Bruce Wayne fight wits and courage in the third part, but the second part has been more comprehensive, and Nolan himself feels that this proposal will not be more effective. In a word, the scope of the role is constantly torn down and rebuilt, but it is particularly touching, especially the stacker holders. Mr. Last, your and Nolan's opinions can greatly influence the filming of the project. I mean, Catwoman should be a good fit. Oh, how do you mean fit? Lemon pretended to be stupid. He seemed to know the other party's purpose vaguely. In the comics, Catwoman is a very popular female character in DC. Warner also made an adaptation at the time. It's a pity that the box office performance of that movie was not so outstanding, but it still had an influence. In Lemon's play for lies, the other party said without hesitation, Halle Berry, who is under my company, is the star of that version of Catwoman. I don't know if you have seen it. Her performance in it is not a drag. Lemon understood. Speaking of which, since the failure of Catwoman in 2005, this popular artist has directly fallen out of the first line and won the Golden Raspberry Performance Award in the same year, so it is of course a lie to say that she did not drag the team down at all, but the biggest blame for that movie is not the actors, but Hollywood believes in the theory of results. Of course, it will be affected if you are unlucky enough to encounter it. Anyway, since then, it has been difficult for Halle Berry to get a chance to play the leading female role. Her agent also understands this, so after hearing about Warner's move, she wants to try hard to fight for it. After all, it was Halle Berry who impressed the audience with Catwoman's screen appearance. The agent said she recently went back to her hometown. How about I'll let her meet you in a few days? Sleeping in front of her? Oh, no. Persuading her in person. Small problem, I will propose it to Warner. But it's hard to say who to choose. Although Halle Berry is beautiful and sexy, Lemon has no intention of maintaining any relationship with her. In addition to whether she is suitable, casting also needs to consider market and fan factors. Obviously, she is a thing of the past. Coupled with the problem of age, it is extremely difficult to turn over. There are too many unfavorable aspects. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Warner is indeed very entangled in the delineation of the roles in the third part. There is no other reason. There are too many characters who are entangled with Bruce Wayne. and the story itself has to follow Nolan's system, which makes it even more difficult to choose. In other words, they have jumped into the pit of dark style, eager to reproduce the grand screening of The Dark Knight. For this reason, those themes with room for exploration have been put into the scope of adaptation by Warner. So, Watchmen, such a connotative theme, is not the beginning, and it is far from the end. But if Catwoman is really to be added, Anne Hathaway in the original version is more likely to increase the box office than Halle Berry. There is no rush for this matter. It will probably take next year for Warner to polish the script, and the direction of the adaptation is not so easy to confirm. Moreover, Nolan will definitely intervene in the script adaptation, and it will also take time for his brother Jonathan to communicate with Warner. How is the situation of District 9? Lemon asked after finishing his trip to ICM and returning to the Firefly building. The audience response is still very enthusiastic, but the media evaluation has not come down. Ryan took out the sorted film review entries and handed them to Lemon, saying, "There are many emotional people in the industry, but if our media public relations expenses have not increased much, I would have thought that we spent a lot of money to make them so emotional." Ryan's ridicule and those comments that Lemon himself felt were too flattering almost confirmed the reputation of District 9 as a movie that is appreciated by both the elite and the masses. This posture also kept the movie's attendance rate in the second week good. Even on weekdays, it was around 40%. Oh, by the way, what's the market forecast for this weekend's new movie Quantum of Solace? Its charm is higher than we thought, man. Ryan said seriously, judging from the recent publicity, many North American audiences are looking forward to it. In addition, in terms of grand scenes and visual enjoyment, District 9 is no match for 007 with its luxury cars and beauties. The investment in Quantum of Solace exceeded $200 million, which is a new peak in production, but the proportion of actors and creators is not high. You can imagine how much thought was put into the scenes. Similarly, this movie still took the route of being released overseas first, and then in North America. It has accumulated a box office of $250 million in a week and a half. Its momentum in Europe has long been established. North American audiences are of course looking forward to the screening of the movie. Some forecasting agencies directly pointed out that the first week in North America would exceed $60 million US. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 863 High Quality Vest. Please subscribe, vote. Just as the industry predicted, 007, Quantum of Solace did not fail, but injected new vitality into the market. It was not even a big surprise. Although Daniel Craig, the new agent, always failed when he starred in other themes, he regained his dominance once he put on the Bond vest. You know, he has only played 2 007 series, but he has already conquered the fans he had accumulated before, and attracted more audiences. For him, this is also a pain and happiness. It can be said that his acting career has narrowed down, or it can be said that 007 has greatly increased his fame and successfully became a more suitable tool for Sony to promote and build momentum than previous Bond actors. In Los Angeles, the hot topics on the streets have peacefully divided the attention of most of the fans and audiences, and the analysis of Blue Butterfly is not wrong. 007, Quantum of Solace and District 9 do not overlap much, because most of the main moviegoers this weekend are newcomers, and are not interested in District 9. Of course, one has just proved its box office strength overseas, and is feeding back to North America, and fans are looking forward to it. Although the other is still at its peak, it has begun to decline slowly, and the number of people coming to support it is definitely incomparable. But the two theaters have more than 7,500 theaters combined, and the screening share accounts for 70% of the schedule, which is definitely a weapon to boost the market. The shareholders of several large theater chains are very happy. It's still the same style, keeping the same in the face of change. So cool. This Bond girl is Olga Kurylenko, so feminine, Just like Eva in the last movie, no longer an inflatable doll, just a perfunctory embellishment. I think it's a bit different. Bond should be a romantic and intelligent type, not a tough guy who punches hard. Is the director learning from the Bourne supremacy and imitating Bourne? Is the director a Parker fan? Why are there chase scenes with no driving tools other than sports cars and airplanes? After the screening of Quantum of Solace, which is said to be the sequel to Casino Royale, the audience did not forget to express their opinions or discuss with their companions. To be honest, the ratio of male to female audiences in the 007 series is very unbalanced. The general commercial blockbusters basically maintain a ratio of 7:3, but except for couples, it is almost difficult to see female audiences buying tickets alone to enjoy this style of movies in the 007 series, especially in America where women's independent thinking is increasingly rising. However, the producers are very good at capturing the hearts of male fans. Even if they follow the trend and make the Bond girl's role more prominent, it also sets off Bond's existence, so several flirting scenes are still portrayed in a very traditional way, and even make core fans feel a little sorry that Bond didn't sleep with her, and feel sorry for him. Well, this is the second girl image who is casually acquainted with Bond after Eva. It has to be said that the producer MGM is very good at arranging the plot according to the market, because this trick worked during the Casino Royale period. Although some fans don't think it's exciting and very tasteful after watching it, it is obviously worth the price of the ticket. The evaluation and reputation given are actually stable above the passing line, and there are many who give high scores. The latest Bond movie premiered in more than 3,400 theaters in North America and won the first day box office of $27 million on the same day, which also made Columbia smile. After taking over the 007 series, it's funny, harvesting a gold mine that has been developed for more than 40 years and is still worth mining. After the first weekend, it continued the momentum of the first day, opening with a box office data of $70.4 million, with an average of $20,400 per theater. Of course, although District 9 has declined, the overlap of the audience groups of the two is not high. The box office of $44.64 million in the second weekend, a drop of almost 38%, is also a booster for the film market this week. The champion and runner-up jointly cut $115.04 million, setting a new high for the market, 6% higher than last year's schedule, and also let Daniel Craig taste the pleasure of breaking the series record again, the 6th place in the history of the premiere in November, second only to Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, District 9, and The Incredibles, pushing Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa to 7th. The series has the highest box office in the first week of opening. A little later, the total record that was just broken by Casino Royale for 2 years is likely to be broken again. After all, with a ticket price of only about $7.80, including advanced screenings, more than 9 million North American viewers watched Quantum of Solace in the first weekend, which is only 300,000 less than the well-received District 9. Now, the cumulative box office of District 9 in North America has exceeded 130 million. Even if the 007 series often falls too much, it is exaggerated to collapse next week, with a 60% drop, and there is hope that it will exceed the 170 million North American total box office of Casino Royale. This is why Columbia is happy. As for other works on the list, The Third Man produced by Universal maintains a good sales curve. It is an unquestionable fact that the box office appeal of Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott has risen. Another Universal film under the same company, Changeling, which ranks 5th, was affected by the cold reviews of the media. The decline this week is about twice that of last week. Once it falls below the production cost of $55 million, Angelina Jolie's self-help strategy of switching to literary and artistic awards after Beowulf will fail. What about the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th place? For example, Selfie, The Secret Life of the Mountain, Saw 5, and The Shadow all plummeted. Among them, Saw 5, which was distributed by Lionsgate, actually gave James Wan a surprise. The new behind the scenes of this guy successfully surpassed the previous work and achieved the good results when the sequel was just started. The total box office in North America exceeded 50 million after 1.5 months of screening. It is worth it that this series is so good. John Fillmore was very happy. Every time he cooperated with Lyman, he was very relieved and had no pressure. In addition to the Saw series, the overseas market operation of District 9 was also not neglected. Counting the commission, the profit margin is very optimistic. Although District 9 has not beaten 007 in Europe, in Asia, the two sides are fighting each other, and there is no difference. Moreover, Lionsgate's distribution team is also very clear that Quantum of Solace is not likely to fight a long battle. If it is really compared with the sequel, District 9 is likely to reverse the trend and surpass it. It is not certain who will make more money overseas, only in terms of box office. He also understands that his company relies on a lower profit sharing standard than the 6 major studios to win original projects that are not easy to develop around them, and he feels more and more that he needs to have a good relationship with the other party. Because Lionsgate can no longer do without high quality project providers, he needs to feed the upstream and downstream, and those overseas investors will be close to him. Chapter 864, A Very Mercenary Director. Please subscribe, vote. With the coming of December, 2008 is coming to an end. In the Firefly building in Burbank, the office staff are busy and happy. The whole company is full of vitality and is not affected by the depressed financial market at all. After all, the company's revenue has soared this year, and the year-end bonus will definitely not be small. Although there is still a month to harvest the market, most of the films released in December are Oscar-winning films, and the scale of screening is not large. For example, the recently hotly discussed Slumdog Millionaire has exceeded 30,000 in a single theater, but that is because they only have 23 theaters for preview screenings, and the audience can only watch it in advance by scrambling for tickets. This makes it look impressive and the stalls are spread out, but it is not exaggerated. So if nothing unexpected happens, according to the annual data list summarized by the film market, Firefly's self-produced projects have a total of 2 films ranked in the top 10, among which Iron Man has also locked the title of North American champion, and there are 4 films with a box office of over 100 million yuan. Not to mention that it has surpassed a number of second-tier studios, including the Big Five. Firefly's performance is very outstanding, but the output is still not high. Not only that, in terms of TV series, relying on Hell's Kitchen, Prison Break 5, The Walking Dead 4, Stranger Things 2, Breaking Bad 3 and the slightly profitable The Roaring Squadron and the relatively surprising ratings DOC Men. Apart from the size of the TV station, it has truly become the first among the film suppliers. This report card not only brings people together in the company, including Marvel Entertainment, which has slowly changed after the acquisition, but also makes Lionsgate and Fox, which is at the bottom of the performance and the struggle of the Big Five this year, a little envious. Such an efficient production level, who wouldn't take a look? I just don't know if Firefly can continue to maintain it. After this week, on December 8th, after 4 weeks of screening, District 9 had accumulated 454 million worldwide revenues, of which North America alone contributed 203 million. Now, no one is worried that the movie will not make money, and it has even been dubbed by the media as the work most likely to break the R-rated movie record, The Passion of the Christ, with 610 million. The reason why everyone is so optimistic is that District 9 has been very stable, which is in line with the usual expectations of popular works with high reputation. The decline in overseas screenings seems to be faster than expected. Mr. Fellamy. On a new day, Lemon took over the recent performance report of the film and made a phone call to the chairman of Lionsgate. Judging from the current situation, the potential in North America is almost there, and the remaining time is basically to continuously reduce the number of theaters and wait for the next release. Therefore, whether District 9 can get a higher box office and break a record depends more on overseas regions. Of course we want to do better, but District 9 is an original project after all. You can't make its promotion as simple as Twilight. It's not easy to find a topic for hype. And I personally think that it's good to earn so much overseas without much cultural rejection. It's not difficult to reach 500 million worldwide. John Phelan said easily. Don't worry, great director. We will have a very good year end. Thank you for your hard work. After the routine urging, Lyman couldn't manage overseas business after all, and could only hope that Lionsgate's operation methods would be more powerful. It doesn't matter whether the record is broken or not. Is the box office higher and the copyright value greater? It's about interests. It's better to be higher. After a while, Lyman, who was sitting quietly in the boss chair, was stopped from continuing to fish by the sound of his assistant Mace knocking on the door. What's the matter? Someone is looking for you. It's a director. Do you want to meet him? Mace received a call from the front desk and immediately registered the information and asked, who is it? Todd Phillips, a director with some achievements. Let him come up. He's in my office. Lyman waved his hand. As the company becomes stronger, its foundation becomes deeper, and its capital chain becomes more stable, it has attracted the attention of many filmmakers. This can be seen from the fact that Blue Butterfly Pictures can receive more project distribution. In other words, in addition to independent business, cooperative business is also growing rapidly. This is a more reasonable composition of a studio. However, most low-level filmmakers basically fail at the review stage. It is not so easy to get investment from Firefly. What's his situation? I heard from the front desk that he seems to have brought a script, probably to seek funding and distribution. Maze curled his lips. Todd came to the Firefly building and had been sitting on the sofa next to the front desk for half an hour. It is not easy to meet Lyman or Firefly's well-known producers such as Garsha and Brian. Of course, you can take the opportunity to promote them at the cocktail party, but these people have been busy recently and have reduced banquets, forcing Todd to be so formal. He is not a newcomer. He has been in Hollywood for almost 13 years. At the age of 38, he is relatively young in the director circle. Of course, he cannot be compared with the more young and promising ones like James Wan and Lyman, but he is not without any foundation. In fact, although he is not a direct descendant of the Big Five, he has a good relationship with Warner. He has cooperated with Warner 3 times, which is the most times among the studios he has cooperated with, and he is more familiar with it. However, he and Warner did not reach an agreement on the project planned this time. After several considerations, he thought of trying Firefly. The reason is, of course, that he feels that the production environment of Firefly attaches great importance to directors, and Firefly is not as big as Warner, and the project is more creative, so maybe he can get better conditions. The young lady in charge of reception entered his information seriously, then passed it on, and then smiled and asked him to sit for a while. This sit lasted half an hour. It was not that Firefly was deliberately neglecting them, but since last year, many people have come to Firefly to try their luck and take scripts to fish. Lyman stipulated that the information of the visitors must be clearly inquired first, and the reliability of the director must be evaluated before they can be invited to have a detailed discussion. There is no other way. If anyone can meet Lyman or the company's senior management, it will undoubtedly increase a lot of workload, which cannot be handled at all. This also indirectly shows the difficulty of new directors in Hollywood, because such people have no qualifications at all. It is difficult to be trusted, and they may not even have the hope of entering the studio to attract investment. Fortunately, Todd is not a newcomer. He has made 6 movies, 2 of which lost money, 1 broke even, and 1 made a profit by operating the film festival. The only ones that really proved his commercial potential were The King of Gamblers with Billy Bob and Police and Hutch with Ben Stiller, and the success rate is still guaranteed. Chapter 865 Scheduled Adaptation. Please subscribe and vote. Director Phillips. In the office, Lyman soon saw the visitor, about 1.8 meters tall, with a carefully trimmed beard and a gentle temperament. He had a smile on his face, and he looked very confident and not too reserved, because for Todd, this was just a normal contact and negotiation. If the cooperation failed, he would not have no next buyer. There were so many production companies in the United States, and there was a lot of room for choice for him. After a few polite words, Todd Phillips stated his intention, and Lyman did not hesitate to ask, "Since you brought the script, can I take a look first?" Todd nodded, handed over the script from his briefcase, and sat calmly on the sofa. This glance finally made Lyman remember the other party a little. At that time, Todd was a director with a bit of bad taste who could only shoot comedy themes. His innovation index was not high, and the story was not novel. No matter how you looked at it, he was a stereotyped comedy director, and his status in the circle was not high. However, when Lyman read the script, he remembered that this guy could still achieve results. Although he is now unknown, his talent is not as scarce as people think. After all, who would have thought that this guy suddenly transformed and made the popular independent work Joker in 2019? Although there are many off-site interferences in the success of Joker, it is undeniable that Todd's directing talent is not bad, but this guy has not found the way and is not enterprising. For example, in order to get the adaptation rights of the Joker, this guy begged Warner for more than a year before the project was approved. It can also be seen that Warner at that time did not trust a director who could only shoot mainstream comedies, because after that, this guy just liked to shoot bad comedy, such as the script at this time, a creative conception of man standing on the threshold of marriage crazy night, The Hangover. This kind of routine is common in Hollywood. The success of The Hangover is more due to the good chemistry between the main creators. According to the lead actor Bradley Cooper, who is now working with Firefly on the first season of Loser Man and is at home, he complained in an interview that when the movie was being filmed, everyone often gathered together to discuss, add, and modify scenes, and add jokes. Similar creative models are not common in Hollywood. Hong Kong Island in the 1980s and 1990s, who filmed on impulse, liked to do so. Hollywood is still mostly rigorous. Not to mention constantly changing the script, even which day to shoot which part needs to be determined in advance and submitted to the investors or producers for approval. So when Lyman read the script, he was not surprised at all, because it was really shot completely according to the script. Many of the classic scenes of The Hangover were not written in the script. In other words, Todd's own comedy skills are indeed cliched and cannot withstand market polishing. Look at the Hangover series that made him famous. Even with such achievements, a complete small-scale investment with a return rate far exceeding the average level, Todd Phillips is still not considered a first-line director by major studios, which shows that the investors are not blind. Because apart from The Hangover, whether it is The King of Gamblers and Police and Hutchison Whampoa shot before, or Due Date and The Arms Dealer afterward, the results are not impressive, which can also prove that The Hangover is really the main creative work, not the director himself. After all, if he is really outstanding, he would have been treated like a treasure by the studio long ago. How can he get to where he is now without the studio's backing and recruitment? Maybe he can still improve, because directors rely on experience, but now Todd Phillips is indeed a tool director who is neither good nor bad, with no special features. Furthermore, Lyman is also eyeing the rights to adapt the Joker, and he can't wait for Phillips to make a move. Given the current relationship between Firefly and Warner, this is a promising idea. The idea popped up in an instant, and was temporarily put aside. The Dark Knight gave Warner a lot of confidence. It hadn't encountered a big pit, so it was not the time to calculate carefully. Moreover, the project of The Hangover is of course good, provided that the chemistry can be guaranteed to be the same as the original team. Otherwise it is likely that the value of the copyright will be greatly discounted, and it will become Todd's usual embarrassing situation of being able to make a profit, but the profit is just that. After all, strictly speaking, it seems difficult for a low-cost comedy to lose money. Universal shoots at least 5 or 6 comedy themes a year, and it doesn't see them losing money, which shows that the audience market for comedy has always been regional characteristics. In other words, people all over the world like to watch comedies based on regional culture. If they can make the audience laugh, the box office will not be bad. Once they go abroad, it is a bit lacking in taste. It is a typical theme of regional barriers. As for Todd Phillips, this guy exudes a businessman's aura. In addition to his film career, his most prominent performance was in 2011, when he kissed rich and wild Lady Paris Hilton at a celebration party, officially announcing their relationship. So if Firefly wants to get this project, it has to negotiate the salary conditions with Todd. The reason why he wants to find a new company is because Warner thinks this project is very ordinary and has no expectations. As a result, Warner does not expect it, and the production team is not tough, but it gets a surprise. It is also outrageous. After Lyman asked Todd's agent to negotiate the contract directly with the company's legal team, the meeting ended. 2 days later, Joseph came over and started the reporting process. What did he mention? Very trivial, you see. Joseph took out the contract and handed it over. $4 million plus 8% of the North American box office share. Lyman skipped over a lot of guarantees about the right to speak on the set and turned to the column about position salary. Does he want to be a producer as well? Any director will make similar requests and fight for filming rights. It's a part-time job anyway, and there is no burden on his main job. Joseph shrugged. Hollywood is a producer-centered system, and the producers union has the most weight. Okay, he's not a newcomer anymore and has the qualifications, but what about the film copyrights? We invest, we are responsible for distribution, and of course we hold them all, but we may not be able to do without him for this series. Even if he is not a director, he has to be a producer. He has already found a position for himself. He's very smart. It seems like he has a lot of plans. Lyman smiled. Do you want to start the project? I think it will be difficult if you keep lowering the price. Let's make sure. Lyman waved his hand. He can give suggestions on casting, but he must get our consent. If you agree to this, he will be the producer and director of this project. In addition, call Bradley Cooper. If there is any schedule change, tell Fox TV to postpone the filming of the second season of Loser a little bit. Okay. Joseph nodded in response. Chapter 866 The Hangover Core Team. Subscriptions, votes, salary and fame are not a threshold for judging in Hollywood that needs to be avoided with shame. After the first season of Loser ended perfectly with a rating of 6.5, Bradley Cooper's agent was very happy to say that he would soon become a more popular comedian among the audience. Of course, this is limited to the field of television. In fact, the television circle and the film circle have always been separate. The achievements of the two are difficult for the former to transition to the latter, but the latter can easily maintain the former. Although it sounds a bit confusing, it is easy to understand, as long as you know that movies are bigger than television. So when Bradley Cooper knew that he had the opportunity to participate in a movie, and he was still the protagonist, there was naturally no reason to refuse. Lyman looked at Cooper, who left happily, and muttered to himself, this guy majored in drama and has a master's degree. Although he is trapped by his image and narrow acting range, he is definitely competent. Moreover, he himself is willing to seize the opportunity and is not arrogant enough to use his TV fame to fight for an excessively high movie salary. The Hangover can still suppress the production cost, which is also very critical. In any case, we cannot take it lightly before the film comes out. Lyman turned his head and stretched his body. Then he told Johnson to sort out the resumes of male actors with a net worth of no more than $5 million who had played comedy roles, and then he frowned and slowly flipped through them. In the recent film market, the number of theaters showing District 9 has been reduced to 988, barely in the top 10, ranking 9th, and the daily revenue is only in the double digits, and the weekly total may be only 3 or 4 million. Fortunately, the year-end Oscar-winning movies all pay attention to controlling word of mouth, so District 9 was not squeezed more severely. But it doesn't matter. In the film industry, there will always be replacements. Lionsgate is very satisfied to be able to meet the established expectations. Of course, if District 9 had not been so powerful, the cooperation between the two parties might not have been so harmonious. There are countless temporary partners in Hollywood who have fallen out over profit sharing. Is the new project a comedy? Todd Phillips is directing. After Johnson collected and sorted out the resumes of relevant personnel from the Screen Actors Guild and major agencies, he immediately realized that he had something to do and accompanied Lyman in the initial screening of actors. Don't you want to find a movie star with guaranteed traffic? Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson are both very close to Firefly. Lyman shook his head. Selecting people is also his strong point, but it doesn't mean that he won't listen to any suggestions. Director Phillips also recommended Ben Stiller, but do you know how I refused? The two have collaborated on Police and Hutchins, and have a good relationship. I'm just curious. Ben Stiller is one of the most popular comedians right now. Look at the media and audience reviews. Everyone likes him very much. He does have a good appeal. His participation will certainly be good for The Hangover, but I don't think it's worth it. You know, his salary and bonus for Museum 2 is likely to be more than $15 million US. Even if his salary is reduced, will it be less than $10 million? The Hangover is not the kind of movie that relies solely on the role to create jokes. With him, it will definitely attract more fans' attention, but the return may not be great. Johnson understood what he meant. Soon, Lyman and Johnson discussed and determined a list of castings, and then invited Todd Phillips. Todd had just signed a director's contract and started to busy himself with the early preparations. Although he himself didn't have much intention to fight for actors, he was still very positive to participate in the audition, to know who he would work with in the future. As a result, when he came, the situation was slightly different from what he expected. Generally speaking, it is very simple to select actors according to the script requirements. Just send the standards to the Actors Union or major studios and let them determine the recommended candidates first, then audition and use connections. It can be done in about half a month. After all, the investment share of The Hangover is only $35 million US, and this is because it has to be filmed in Las Vegas, where the local expenses are relatively high. Otherwise it can be less. And the main roles are only 4 characters with a tiger and a baby, and the scope itself is not large. But who would have thought that Lyman had already provided suitable actors, and even spent time on auditions could be avoided. This is really first-class efficiency. Bradley Cooper plays a role of Phil, a playboy teacher, and his salary is $4 million. Ed Helms, the host of The Daily Show, is an actor as a side job, but given his many years of experience in program production and his ability to control humor, he does not have to worry about his performance when playing the role of Stu, a timid, cowardly, and talkative dentist, and his salary is $2 million. He also has the ability to polish the jokes in the scenes on the spot, and is one of the major contributors to the success of The Hangover. As for the weird brother-in-law in the original version, Lyman had no impression of him, and it was difficult to find him in the crowd, so he was replaced by Steve Carell, a gay man who had the most difficult performance in Little Miss Sunshine, but gave a wonderful performance. After Little Miss Sunshine, his popularity gradually accumulated, and later he became famous with the broadcast of the TV series The Office, and his star path suddenly opened up. Steve Carell received the invitation, and since he was a firefly with a lot of production guarantees, he naturally would not refuse. With a salary of $2.7 million, the last role is Doug, the initiator of this farce. Although he has fewer scenes than the above-mentioned actors, he is also a key role in promoting the plot. He is played by Rainn Wilson, recommended by Johnson. There is not much to talk about this person. He has played in the comedy Entourage, and is a client of CAA. He is 28 years old and meets the requirements of the role. The salary is only $300,000. Such a team lineup, with both the core duo of the original Cooper and Holmes, and the powerful actor Carell, can basically guarantee that there will be no problems during the filming. Of course, Todd Phillips also thinks so. Although he is not familiar with all these people, it can be seen from their resumes that the casting is attentive and not randomly arranged. Anyway, the focus of this film is on how to create jokes under the cliché setting of a ridiculous night, and it happens that these people are very experienced in comedy and are good at creation. In other words, they have perfect abilities when they are inspired during the filming. Most importantly, their combined salary is only $9 million, which is affordable. Finally, the cameo appearance of Kat Dennings and Beth Bears, the two broke girls' partner, in the play can also add some topics to the promotion of the film, such as the reunion of the male and female protagonists of The Loser. After all, Cooper and Dennings are more popular than in their previous lives, and they have some basis for audience appeal at this time, which can be diverted through TV series. In other words, whether The Hangover can surprise people after controlling the risks, Lyman has made efforts. Chapter 867, just discovered. Please subscribe, vote. 2008, 2 weeks have passed this month. After spending a few days to finalize the main cast of The Hangover, the crew led by Blake Cole as the main producer of the project officially entered the New Line Studios to prepare and set up the scene, but Lemon still couldn't rest. In addition to the new project, the shooting progress of Captain America and Thor are moving forward as planned and may even be completed in early January and enter post-production. Another thing is the Twilight series. Lionsgate's overseas market for District 9 has almost reached the final stage of filming, so it is natural to consider next year's business. After thinking about it, after causing a frenzy in the youth market in 2007, the same whirlwind should blow again in 2009. According to the schedule, it is the right time to prepare for the second part of Twilight. Because this series has age restrictions on actors, you can't expect an actor in his 40s to still act young and youthful on the screen. So Lionsgate and Firefly both think that the Twilight series should learn from the routine of the Harry Potter series and release one every other year, or even one every year, to always mobilize the fans' desire to watch the movie. You know, the author of the novel, Stephanie Meyer, has published the third Eclipse and is still writing. Under the stimulation of the movie, the number of fans has increased, and she has made a lot of money, which can inspire her creative inspiration. Even if there is no money, the editors of Random House will help her. Everyone doesn't want this series to end quickly, right? After Firefly demonstrated its production capabilities, the unpleasantness in the past over the adaptation copyright has been greatly alleviated. Although Mia still feels that the price is too low, at least her attitude has softened a lot after the first movie sold more than 400 million worldwide. After all, if it is true that, if the market is not stimulated by movies, her fans can increase so much quickly, and she herself has been reported by media in more regions, and she has become a celebrity writer. These are all dividends brought by the popularity of movies. The actual situation is indeed so, and she was given more than 21 million, 5% of the project's profit, for the first film. Although this amount of money cannot be compared with the income paid to Rowling by Warner for the subsequent production of the Harry Potter series, it is definitely in the middle of the popular writers, and it is not very unfair. Who let the copyright be taken away before the book became popular at that time? John Feller made an appointment and talked to Lemon about this matter openly, urging him to start the project. Lemon also readily agreed. Don't worry, we can get the crew by early March at the latest. The actors and creators have signed long-term contracts, and they just need to notify the agency to set the schedule. The pay is not that high, and it is definitely not comparable to the popularity. It is that the fans of Pattinson and Stewart don't know that Firefly is exploiting their rivals like this. Otherwise they will definitely come to the company building to make trouble. But from another perspective, without the Twilight series, these two people would not be famous. In terms of appearance, there are a lot of handsome men and beautiful women in Hollywood, and even the peripherals are of high quality. Anyway, those agencies are very polite to Lemon, knowing that it is the movie that made them famous, and they will not make a fuss on impulse. They are all reasonable and well-founded to fight for their own artists within the scope. After contacting each other, when Lemon returned home, it was not only Lionsgate, the distributor, who was concerned about the sequel to Twilight, but Eva was also excited. She followed the script adaptation of the second part, and was also a member of the production team of the first part. She had long regarded this as her second career. Didn't you say that you would find a suitable director? Have you found one? Eva reminded him, while sitting on him. Of course. Are you still not confident in my vision? Since it was put on the production schedule, Lemon definitely had considerations. Speaking of which, those actors are generally 19 or 20 years old now, and they can't afford to be young. Moreover, the shooting difficulty of Twilight is not high, as long as you are not a real shooting fanatic, and the range of choices is not small. For example, Chris Weitz. Yes, it was the director of The Golden Compass, who was badly cheated by New Line. He has the ability, otherwise he would not have been chosen and trusted by New Line. But the direction of the movie was wrong from the beginning, tinkering with children's magic, which was not pleasing to both sides. It was useless to ask Cameron to come. Of course, the truck driver might not listen to the transfer at all, and would not shoot according to New Line's intentions. And one of Chris Weitz's advantages is that he knows a lot about special effects production and scene scheduling. In addition, after filming The Golden Compass, he was blacklisted by major studios and has been in a mess recently. If Firefly had sent an invitation, he would definitely put in 120% of his energy to save his career, and it would be easier to lower the price. Eva didn't quite understand this principle, but she didn't nail him down directly. Since she got involved in the field of production, she has been learning and improving. If she only considers controlling costs and expanding profit margins, then Chris Weitz is definitely suitable, because before The Golden Compass, he had been recognized by investors in the industry with movies such as American Pie and A Single Man, which means that he has fallen into a big pit and people are afraid that he will not be able to get out of it. There are many similar examples in the industry. Aren't you worried that his mentality has been unbalanced? Lemon smiled. Did he mean that New Moon created a new series high after Chris Weitz took over, and the story of the second part was better than the first one, and the audience recognized it more? He has been filming for 11 years. He is not like Night Shyamalan, who peaked right after his debut and got stuck in the past glory of The Sixth Sense. He is still trustworthy. Lemon touched Eva's face and then expressed his opinion on Chris Weitz, who can avoid setbacks. You can see that I'm pushing him hard for things that are uncertain. I really think his shooting style and image processing are very suitable for New Moon. Isn't the scene of The Golden Compass beautiful when taken out alone? That's right. Eva frowned and showed a look of reminiscence. That masterpiece is a typical example that many filmmakers specially study to avoid pitfalls in the future. Speaking of which, if it weren't for those exquisite shots, the box office would definitely be at the next level. From this perspective, Chris Weitz is really unlucky. It cannot be said that he did not seize the opportunity, because he himself does not have the right to edit. The filmed materials are all completed by New Line and Warner after discussion. So, as long as you understand what I mean. Lemon quickly ended the topic. It's time to rest, go to sleep, and in the subsequent negotiations with the actors, I will let you learn more from Johnson, how to use bargaining chips to lower the price. I'm an actor too. Eva replied with a smile. This is Hollywood, girl. Actors are just one part of it. You are becoming more and more like a capitalist. Just realized it. HMM. Chapter 868. A good starting point. Please subscribe and vote. People's ambitions never expand suddenly. In order to find connections to enter the industry, Spielberg made himself familiar to the bigwigs in the film industry every day, and he did this for several years. Cameron started his career as a special effect worker in movies, but who would have thought that he would eventually establish his own brand and be admired by thousands of fans? So, to be honest, Chris Weitz's starting point is even higher than these two. His brother Paul Weitz graduated from the drama major and was appreciated by his school tutor during his graduate studies. He was also a director and writer, and he became a producer in just a few years. When Chris entered the industry, he didn't need to look for opportunities everywhere. His brother asked him to help the TV station write scripts. He accumulated some qualifications, occasionally played a guest role in the middle, and smoothly transitioned to assistant director and episode director, enriching himself during the filming. With a few works as a foundation and a solid foundation, people in the industry naturally knew that there was such a person. Later, the two brothers joined forces, one as a producer and the other as a director, and made a name for themselves with the American Pie series. They continued to accumulate capital and jointly established a studio to officially participate in project sharing. Look, Chris Weitz has come step by step, more smoothly than 90% of the directors in the circle. When he was enjoying fame and fortune, Lemon didn't come. But life is sometimes fucked up. After finally taking a step forward and becoming one of the few directors who can direct a masterpiece, he failed. All the past things were buried in an instant. Do you think he will leave the stage in disgrace? Not really, but he failed to make progress and even regressed, which is cruel for a person like him. What's more, there are more and more high budget works these days, and the amount of investment is higher than the previous one. Can he be trusted by the investors to direct a masterpiece again? Many people in Hollywood are superstitious. Ryan, there is a director who needs you to meet. Here is his contact information. The next day, Lemon rushed to the company and asked the production staff to approve the project of New Moon while asking Ryan, who was steady, to meet with Wheats for cooperation. When Ryan went to the man's house, he found that he was not affected by the failure of the golden compass at all. It was just that the sadness between his eyebrows could not be concealed when he glanced at it occasionally. Of course, Chris Wheats himself felt that he was unlucky, and he was very cautious about the invitations he chose, fearing that he would be cheated again. If he failed twice in a row, it would be a disaster, which is why he has not taken any action recently. The two met and were polite to each other. Chris took Ryan to the study, looking very serious. After all, Ryan came to ask him to be the director this time, and Chris didn't dare to fight an uncertain battle again. In other words, he needed to protect his right to speak in the filming, and he couldn't be led by the investors anymore, and he took the blame without knowing it. This guy's unlucky degree is comparable to Wolfgang Petersen, the director of Troy, the one where Pitt showed off his body, had too much drama, and the greasy smell overflowed the screen. Well, that was also a project produced by Warner. Both of them did not have enough control over the project, and the latter was even more extreme. The director's cut sold better than Warner's theater cut DVD. How could this be justified? Ryan didn't think so much, and directly took out the script that had been determined long ago from his briefcase, and handed it to the other party. Chris Wheats took it casually, flipped through it a few times, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. It was because he really had never thought that Firefly would invite him to be the director of the sequel to Twilight. This is a theme that can drive female audiences crazy, but before that, there was no news in the circle. After a careful look, he had a better idea in his mind, but the lesson Chris learned from the Golden Compass made him suppress his slightly urgent mood and asked hesitantly, "May I know why director Catherine gave up the filming of the sequel?" He saw Ryan's strange expression and changed his words euphemistically. "It's just that it was a bit sudden. We didn't reach an agreement on the salary issue." Ryan shook his head slightly. "Let's not talk about her. I came here this time to solve this matter. Mr. Wheats, can you reserve a schedule from March to July next year?" Ryan had heard about Catherine Hardwicke's shamelessness a long time ago. Of course, it is impossible for such a director who asked for a lot of money to have no emotions towards her. You must have asked beforehand. "I'm very free now." Chris Wheats laughed at himself first, but still said seriously, "But I still want to ask your company, how much power can I have on the set after I become the director of the project? You have the final say on shooting and post-production." Chris seemed to be reminded of bad memories, and said with a bit of sarcasm, "Really, your company won't hire a professional editing team? Since you said that, I won't hide it. If we are not satisfied with the finished film, we will naturally re-edit or reshoot. We have put a lot of thought into the script, and we must respect the original work. I hope you can understand." Too subjective. But this is a movie, sir. Everyone has their own preferences. What we can do is to meet the needs of the audience of the film, and Ryan joked, "At least Firefly's a studio that is better to directors. You can experience it firsthand." Chris's smile was a little forced, but he also knew that this was the easiest project to succeed for him recently. It is recognized that the sequel has low risk. After all, the first film cost less than $65 million and won more than $400 million worldwide. The sequel naturally has a fan base. "Okay, this project has impressed me. Then what do you think of the filming of New Moon? Don't pay attention to the debates on the internet." Chris said from the perspective of a director with deep feeling. "The story of vampires is actually very old-fashioned, but beyond the old-fashionedness, this series is about the growth of a group of young men and women. The theme is very positive, and it is not like other vampire movies that are not suitable for children. In fact, this series is not based on vampires as a selling point. I think it focuses more on how the hero and heroine of the story fight their own destiny." The failure of the Golden Compass first made people a little worried about Chris Wheats, but after hearing this, Ryan suddenly realized that he had completely grasped the core of creation, that is, growth, struggle, romance and love, a dream belonging to a girl. Many people may not understand how the first part became popular. The imitation of vampires and werewolves is not the special feature of Twilight. In fact, as Chris Wheats said, it is too focused on magic and undoubtedly falls into clichés. "I will tell Lyman your filming concept, and he will decide the rest. Although Chris Weitz felt uncomfortable working under a director younger than himself, he also wanted to get some recognition from Lyman because of his status in the industry. This is really a wonderful mentality. Chapter 869 District 9 Summary. Subscriptions. Votes required. Lyman knew Chris Weitz's ability. When Ryan came back and relayed his verbal wishes, he immediately asked Johnson to talk to Chris's agent. There is nothing much to say about this aspect. The Golden Compass will definitely have an impact on his career. After 2 rounds of talks, Chris Weitz's director salary was set at $6.5 million, without any share. He enjoyed the offline income of the project and American Pie, and he also gave the crew staffing treatment, which means that his studio team can move into the New Moon set. Mainly, he felt that the behind-the-scenes personnel he was familiar with could do the job, so he determined the salary position. Of course, Firefly would also send finance and production, and it was impossible to let them form it at will, but it also stipulated that they would not interfere with the shooting without deviating from the shooting plan. This kind of trust is nothing to Firefly, but after experiencing Warner's strong production team, Chris Weitz benefited more from it. In his heart, he also encouraged himself not to fail again, and must shoot seriously. Another day, after the New Moon project was established, Chris made a small request, but the Twilight series also attracted his brother Paul Weitz, who wanted to become one of the producers. This is a small matter, and this person's experience is there. Lyman agreed immediately. Chris was delighted and thanked him on behalf of his brother. Lyman smiled and said, "I still need him to help me deal with the crew's trivial matters, and deal with the review of fire insurance. You just need to focus on directing, and move to post-production before next summer. Any other questions?" "Enough. I'm confident that I can complete it." More than 5 months to shoot a Mary Sue movie with not many transitions is actually quite ample. The time came to December 26th, as District 9 entered the last few days of the countdown to the end of the filming. New Moon heroine Stewart joined the crew with a salary of $6 million, and the male lead Pattinson increased to $7.5 million. The expenses of other supporting roles added up to more than $4.5 million. Therefore, the shooting difficulty of the second part was not high, the special effects scenes were only a little more, and the production cost was also raised from $35 million to $51 million. This is within a reasonable range. But both Lionsgate and Firefly are optimistic about the profit margin of New Moon. After all, the first film has already laid a solid foundation, with over $400 million in sales. With the bonus of the Firefly label and the fact that the novel's author Stephanie has accumulated more fans through Eclipse, the series is more popular, and the financial prospects are very optimistic. Firefly building. Lyman is reporting on the offline operation of District 9. The film's North American performance should be fixed at $277 million, overseas $295 million, and global $572 million. Starting from January 5th, the first 2 million sets of hardcover DVDs will be sold to the market by Blockbuster, Netflix and other channel stores. It is expected that they will be sold out within 30 days, and the number of people who rent and watch movies online will only increase. In the office, several capable people from Blue Butterfly Pictures waited for the boss to finish speaking, and then explained in more detail, and the atmosphere was slightly relaxed. There is no way the reputation of District 9 is too good, and it is still ranked in the upper reaches of the IMDb Top 250 list. Many fans are willing to buy a set for collection. Even though DVD sales were actually affected in 2008 due to the continued development of streaming media and the internet, as more and more fashionable young people like to pay for on-demand streaming on Netflix, and can watch movies whenever they want with a computer, this force is not enough to change the offline landscape. Have you talked to Lionsgate? Yeah. Several overseas regions have been finalized, and they are very busy now, but overall, District 9 is running smoothly. What about the profit sharing? Lyman took out the project income statement. The copyright part is not easy to develop, and it's a bit unfortunate that it is difficult for District 9 to always find points worth discussing. Although the subsequent trend is smooth, it is only $30 million away from breaking the box office record for R-rated films. Otherwise, it can be hyped up in the end. We can't deliberately touch the credit. This can only be attributed to the limitations of the work itself. District 9 is not liked by female audiences. Lyman replied casually and took over the preliminary revenue situation of the company's production of District 9. North American theaters took $110.8 million, overseas theaters took $147.5 million, and the production company took $313.7 million. Among them, Lionsgate took another $29.5 million. After deducting production expenses of $130 million and publicity and promotion expenses of $47 million, Firefly earned $107.2 million. Anyway, it is expected that this ticket will bring Lionsgate no less than $88.5 million in profits, and Firefly will be able to earn another $240.75 million in the next 3 years with District 9 under the box office share. It can only be said that such a return did not disappoint Lyman. As John Phelan said, he can spend the end of the year in a relatively good mood. Lyman put the report aside, pondered for a while, and asked, "Is there a plan for the bonus arrangement of the crew's main creators and the distribution team? Those employees who perform well can be calculated together with the year-end bonus." President Joseph and the financial department have discussed this for a while. He has a better grasp of these personnel rewards or job transfers. Lyman replied, "Your distribution department should sort it out first, and then hand the list to Joseph. The various divisions of the company should still look at it, based on their own income and expenditure." Skipping this topic, that is not easy to talk about in detail. Lyman said, "How is Night at the Museum 2? It will be released in mid-January next year. With the first part as a foundation, the audience should not be small, provided that the quality and jokes are guaranteed. You can be responsible for contacting the people at Screen Treasures and Lionsgate." Lyman sighed in his heart. There will be more production projects next year, and I hope that the performance can be greatly improved again. 2009 is really a big year for Man Media. The confirmed projects include Museum 2, Twilight 2, Captain America, Thor, I'm Legend, and TV series that supplement the Marvel worldview can also be put on the agenda. For example, Hell's Kitchen has always achieved good results in its previous life. Although The Roaring Squadron is a bit disappointing and not eye-catching, at least the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. has deepened his character. Fuckman has been initially known and liked by more audiences. In the case that his role in the movie series is still small, it is no longer so insignificant. After all, when Captain America is released next year, Agent Carter can also appear in SHIELD in the sequel to Hell's Kitchen, and continue to deepen the background based on Daredevil. Marvel has more than 5,000 characters, not all of which are suitable for the main universe movie, but that doesn't mean they have no development value. After all, Marvel's strongest point is the snowball ability, and the speed of popularity expansion will exceed everyone's imagination. Lyman promised. Museum needs more high intensity and large scale publicity than District 9, and we must not relax. Don't worry, we will change the publicity mode starting next week, and continue to bombard with higher exposure. Yeah. Lyman rubbed his eyebrows and confirmed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 870, A Little Generosity. Please subscribe, vote. It is uncomfortable to watch a wealth feast, but if you are also a part of it, it is the fastest way to gather people's hearts. Many large companies have various complex job incentive plans and year-end bonuses. It is obvious that things can be completed by salary increases, but they have to use some tricks to motivate employees. This involves a lot of management knowledge. You just need to understand that it is not easy to increase salaries on a large scale, but the big bosses don't care if the salary increase is paid out under other names. So when the basic date passes and the next year begins, Man Media has already started a hot wealth carnival. Corentin Voss sat in the office with a happy face, asking the employee next to him who has joined Blue Butterfly Pictures for more than 2 years about the past year-end income, so as to estimate what he might get. The two of them talked for a while, but they were both looking forward to it. Because Man Media determines the total bonus based on the total performance, which involves different performances of different departments and employees, and there are slight differences. After all, the amount you get as a lower level employee is very cruel even when compared with the amount you get from management. But it doesn't matter, people are always good at finding their own position, they just need to compete with people of the same class. The first one that can show off is the network publicity department of Blue Butterfly Pictures. The middle level management headed by SYN received a year-end bonus of more than 4 months basic salary, which is more than other stateside managements in the F-line line. To put it more intuitively, at the end of the year, Lyman needs to take out $53.5 million to satisfy more than 950 employees, except the core management of the company. Even if it is spread out, each person will get more than $56,300 based on the average salary in Los Angeles, USA in 2008 and the industry salary of employees with distribution or production experience in the entertainment industry, if they have worked for a little longer and are not pure rookies. The basic salary per month is $3,050 if the per capita disposable income in the United States in 2008 is $60,000. It is better than 75% of the people in the United States, and it is $5,000 per month. Note that the bottom of the entertainment industry will definitely not make $60,000. Just understand the meaning of this conversion. In other words, this money can allow the most basic and hard-working employees to receive a reward of 18 months salary, although the accounts are not calculated in this way, while some bosses may just give a year-end bonus or something like that, and feel that they are at a great loss if they give half a month's salary. This is why some people cannot grow big and cannot retain talents. Let's put it this way, if an enterprise wants to hold all the benefits in its hands, even Don Jez brothers will leave, but if it is willing to share part of the growing wealth, it may really get a large number of brothers. It's okay to be generous, but it's important to have a group of talents who are willing to struggle around you. The extra expenditure of more than $50 million is indeed not much for the wealth created by the copyright channels of Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk and the F-line home entertainment part through the day-to-day work of employees. In other words, it can also be said that after Lyman took away the wealth they earned, he reasonably redistributed it. Everyone has an account in their mind, but how to blur the value of labor is what many people are doing. Of course, this is also relative, because most positions themselves have competition. After all, the performance bonuses that Joseph, Lyman, Kevin Feige and other company hands can take away may be more than the 950 employees combined, but everyone will only envy or motivate themselves to do better. See, isn't it like this? The financial department worked overtime to count, and the outflows made people feel better, except for some who were fired for various reasons. Excitement is excitement, but personnel adjustments and training competition cannot stop. Some new members, including Corentin Voss, finally felt the fact that Lyman advocated before joining the company. Man Media is really easy to succeed in projects and accumulate miracles. Their small group has only 7 people, but everyone has received no less than $12,000. Among them, Corentin, who received $17,000 because of his outstanding performance, was even more emotional. Most of the Hollywood studios are not that profitable, not to mention the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. The unemployment rate soared, not to mention hard work and huge bonuses. Even the basic salary will be a problem. But here, operating projects is not in vain in most cases, and the value of hard work is much easier than before. This surprise from thinking from the inside out, accompanied by a certain uncertainty and a brighter future, made those employees who can still stay in Man Media blush and happily discuss where to spend the next 10-day holiday, and with a little self-examination, they must not leave in disgrace because of some negligence or laziness in work. It was under Joseph's administrative management of the company that Lyman announced the passionate party on December 29th to add fuel to the fire. Each department held it separately, and the party carnival team building cost less than $5 or $6 million, but it allowed them to luxuriate in the Hollywood-style feast. Lyman smiled and listened to the cheers, praises, and flattery of the employees, just like a corner of life. At night, a variety of sumptuous foods were placed on the long table. The hotel was very familiar with hosting buffet parties, especially in Hollywood, where parties never stop. Of course, the management will not go out to mingle with the employees because it is impossible to do so, and it will only make them look restrained. Lemon's intention is to let them enjoy themselves, have fun, and then work harder for next year, and they will definitely not do anything to spoil their mood. Without a boss or a supervisor, the coolly dressed girls naturally joined in at the beckoning of the service manager. Hug, 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 and hug. There is nothing wrong with the rules. Cars come in and out, and there is privacy. When champagne is poured on the girls, their twisting dance moves seem so hot. The security guards who maintain order are not surprised. This is very Hollywood. Alcohol and wealth. Without hormones, how can people immerse themselves in it? You think The Wolf of Wall Street is already exaggerated, but the director is obviously very restrained. If he lets go, it may become an art film. Just like Leo's enviable Victoria's Secret group, he is just a role. If we extrapolate, he is just a big name actor, young and good looking. How can other people with more wealth and power enjoy their lives? Unfortunately, this card cannot be played, otherwise it may be a sure win. Times have changed, but enjoyment remains the same. Chapter 871 New Year, Subscriptions, Tickets. 2008 has passed, and it is 2009. Firefly, Digital Domain, Illumination Entertainment, Blue Butterfly Pictures, Marvel Pictures, Marvel Entertainment, and the clothing business that is still in the preparation cycle are the foundation of Lemon Media. After the enjoyment and passion, the employees return to work. Early in the morning, in front of the breakfast carefully prepared by Eva, Lemon took the latest issue of the Los Angeles Daily News. As expected, the great leader dubbed the only one has begun to announce the Oscar-style rescue measures impatiently. Although there is no specific stimulus for the entertainment industry, it has accelerated the identity recognition of black people. This much publicized document, the Economic Revitalization Plan with a total budget of about $825 billion, looks very encouraging. As a result, the Dow Jones Index plummeted by 4% the day after it was released, reflecting the deep problems that this crisis is far from being so easy to cover up. After all, in the 4 chaotic months, September, October, November, and December, the United States laid off a total of 1.9 million people. In 2008, 2.6 million people lost their jobs in the United States, the most since 1945. The unemployment rate soared to 7.2%. Even if so much money can still be squeezed out under the fiscal deficit, how to restore employment and guide new jobs is not as simple as imagined. In addition, another emphasis in the newspaper is the implementation of the withdrawal of troops as the main political platform during the election. After all, the anti-terrorism war in Iraq and Afghanistan led by Bush Jr. has caused dissatisfaction among many people, and the voices calling for the withdrawal of troops are getting louder and louder. In order to fulfill the promise made when winning votes, the president has also begun to advance in a planned manner. Anyway, all the newspapers on the social page are watching the pace of the new president. The poor are concerned about relief subsidies, the unemployed are concerned about the return of the labor industry, and the rich are repeatedly studying the tax cuts. Lemon quickly turned to the entertainment page, which is where he makes his living. Browsing the information in the industry can help him understand some changes in Hollywood or the trend that is about to change more quickly. For example, several more studios could not hold on and closed down, which made the gamblers who had joined the game with infinite passion calm down a little. For example, the list of nominees for the 81st Academy Awards has not been determined, but the public relations campaign has already begun. For example, Slumdog Millionaire and the political film Nixon Conversations directed by Ron Howard, which have been promoted since December, have already booked seats. For example, Britney has an ambiguous relationship with her agent Jason Troik, and there are pictures and truth. Even more explosive is the separation of DreamWorks and Paramount. Spielberg was acquired by Paramount for a sky-high price of $1.6 billion and net in 2006. Since then, the two sides have started a honeymoon period. During this period, the production team led by Spielberg shot a series of highly successful films for Paramount, including Transformers 1, Rear Window and Blades of Honor. However, the two sides soon had more and more differences over the issue of profit distribution. Until recently, India's Reliance Big Entertainment injected $500 million into Spielberg's studio through ***********************************************************************************************************ğ helping Spielberg to break away from Paramount and become an independent company again. Unexpectedly, Paramount's management did not show a strong reaction, but took the initiative to terminate the contract with the former DreamWorks executives and staff, which enabled Spielberg's team to quickly transfer and reorganize. Of course, the reason why Paramount let go was not only because it could not control Spielberg and the stock market crash, but also because the two sides had finalized a joint agreement on more than 40 development projects. That is, the filming rights of popular IPs such as Transformers are still under Paramount's control. In addition to this, the farce of the Screenwriters Guild has ended. There is no way. The position of the screenwriter is so embarrassing. Directors had made a scene, and capitalists compromised because big shots don't know how to shoot. Actors had made a scene, and capitalists compromised, and the salary space was extremely high because big shots showed up, but fans didn't buy it. Producers had made a scene, and capitalists compromised because Hollywood studios are producer-centered, but screenwriters made a scene every day, and capitalists ignored them. Pointing at the door and laughing, get out. Who can write scripts, and write scripts quickly become producers or directors. This is reality. After browsing the newspaper and finishing breakfast, Lemon waved to Eva, went to the garage and drove to the company. Hasbro's commercial authorization and agency sharing. When Lemon arrived, Mays had already brought in some documents that needed him to deal with. When checking the documents, Lemon found that the peripheral value assessment of District 9 was indeed not high. Signing the income documents with a total of less than $5 million also shows the embarrassment of most original projects. Many fans like the story of District 9 and discuss the deep thinking reflected in it, but it does not mean that they will like the rough shrimp figurines or other derivatives, especially since the mainstream group of the film is still more rational adult male consumers. According to Hasbro's research, the sales data of District 9's derivatives are mediocre and will not rise in the future. It can be said that it can make $5 million in the first 2 months, but it may not make $2 million in the next 2 months, and the total sales volume is about $23 million. Compared with the market of Iron Man, which easily makes more than $1 billion, it is not a little bit worse. This is why Hollywood is more and more chasing after adaptations of popular novels, comics, etc. Compared with original projects, it is a risk. Why not bet on more profitable ones? Good reputation is good, but the profit margin is really not outstanding. The more artistic depth there is, the more it deviates from the masses, but the brand image has a great bonus. Lemon muttered, sighed a few times, waited for assistant Mays to go out, flipped through the project preparation progress, and went to the production department on the 3rd floor to take a look. How's it going? Walking through the busy office area, Lemon looked at Ryan, who was helping to put together the crew for New Moon. Is Eva at the studio? Yes. The preparations are going well. The final stills have been taken. We are just waiting for the union to send some suitable behind the scenes personnel. Ryan smiled and said, in my opinion, Chris Weitz and his brother Paul are more experienced in arranging the set. When can it start shooting? Next month on the 10th is completely okay. Lemon nodded and ran to the New Line studio. There, Eva was working with Paul Weitz and 2 dispatched personnel from the Fire Fund Insurance to make the detailed arrangements for the shooting and minimize the risk of accidents. Lemon watched for a long time, and Eva was still immersed in her work. She was getting closer and closer to a producer who could really take responsibility. Chapter 872 Controversial Topics. Please subscribe and vote. At a regular meeting held by Fox Searchlight, a cinema chain report made the senior executives present have a subtle expression. There was joy and anger, and it was too complicated to express in words. They were happy that the biographical film Gangster Rap Legends released on January 9th won $21.5 million in the first weekend, which was a good start for subsequent screenings, and the single theater earned $9,772. They were angry that, although the venues would increase from 2,200 to 2,450, the scheduling was marginalized, which was really uncomfortable. You know, in order to shoot this movie, some radical media people directly labeled the crew as blood drinking, and because shootings occurred in many theaters during the screening, Searchlight was under a lot of pressure. Why is it like this? Because the film tells the life story of Christopher Wallace, the 24-year-old East Coast rap leader, and the shooting that triggered the East-West Coast fight is still etched in the minds of some fans. In addition, compared with rap works such as 8 Mile and Money Over Life, the film is not so objective. Between Notorious Big's self-narration like an inner stage and the exciting singing scene with a huge crowd, it looks like a poor boy from the bottom of society making a colorful effort in the torrent of fate. The tone of the whole film is gloomy and heavy, which sets off the social environment in which Notorious Big and even hip-hop music are rooted. But the question is, when you shoot like this, have you considered the feelings of Tupac's fans on the other side? This guy was shot first, and the biggest conflict came from interests. Less than half a year later, BLG was also shot, and there is no public opinion so far. Therefore, when the film was released, it was almost teasing the nostalgic fans of both sides who had gradually forgotten the past. Although the momentum was high, it was not without reason to be criticized. What's even more embarrassing is that even if it was for a similar effect, a shark rushed into the January schedule and immediately attracted the attention of most movie fans. In other words, Searchlight has done so much and followed the trend to get close to black people, but the benefits it has gained may not be as much as imagined. Looking at the attitude of theater operators, it's even more suspenseful. This Firefly. Searchlight's senior management discussed it over and over again, but couldn't find a suitable method. There is no way to compete. On January 16, 2009, just yesterday, a plane crash occurred in the United States, but the Hollywood film market, which has always been lively, welcomed the release of the second part of Night at the Museum. Among the new films in the same schedule, Lionsgate also released Bloody Valentine, which can be regarded as competition in addition to cooperation. Although Lyman doesn't think there is any threat, because John Feldmeyer specifically called to talk about it, and the market targeted by the film is still the horror side. Museum is a national comedy, and there is no overlap between the two sides. However, according to Lyman's analysis, in addition to being Lionsgate's usual low-cost horror production, the 3D effect used for experimentation may be a more prominent means of market competition. Of course, even so, the two are no longer on the same level. Museum has won 3,300 theaters in the cinema chain, with a screening share of up to 38%, while Bloody Valentine has less than 2,100 theaters and 16% of the screening. It is simply a luxury to want to surpass the hot sequel with an investment of nearly 200 million yuan, including pre-promotion expenses, at a low cost. Under this premise, the confident Lyman's goal for Museum 2 is of course, to win the championship in a crushing manner, and it would be best if it can last for 2 or 3 weeks. Last year, Man Media did not even beat Lionsgate in terms of total performance in terms of project output alone. Although the company's profit return rate is high, it can't stand it. After having overseas channels, Lionsgate produced and distributed 19 movies in 2008, which is 3 times that of Firefly. From this perspective, Lionsgate has the feeling of being the 6th person under the 5 majors. It doesn't make as much money as Firefly, but the total performance has increased, and the company's operating costs will definitely decrease. So although the two companies are allies, it does not mean that Lyman does not want to surpass Lionsgate. After all, Firefly only had 320 million less project performance than Lionsgate last year. To estimate, it is just one less Iron Man. Only counting the box office 320 million is not a lot, just 3 small goals. If Firefly can maintain its momentum and fight hard, it is not impossible to get past it. And Museum 2 is one of the Trump projects at the beginning of the year, and it can only win, not lose. Under the lively publicity, Ben Stiller and the main creators were running around the radio stations in various states. At the premiere of the film, the media, film critics, movie fans, and guests gathered together. The director of this work, Jay Roach, was in a good mood. He really didn't think that when his directorial career was coming to an end, he would encounter 2 popular series, Meet the Focus and Museum. It also made him have a certain understanding of the role of the brand voice of Firefly's products must be excellent in the confidence of movie fans. Apart from other things, it is a blessing for the studio to have a stable audience, just like Family Reunion for Disney. If parents want to take their children to see a movie, Disney's works are the most suitable choice in most cases. This is the brand culture. However, whether Firefly's box office appeal is as strong as that of Disney at the same time is not to that extent. After all, they have been operating for 20 or 30 years before this concept is deeply imprinted in the hearts of the audience. Of course, it is also thanks to Pixar's acquisition by them. Otherwise, Pixar would have become the king of family-oriented themes in the 20 years after the 1990s. How is Warner? Lemon sat in the corner of the front row and chatted with Nolan and Jonathan, who were sitting next to him. It's not clear yet, and they want to mix everything in. Nolan frowned and said, they want Batman to drive the value of other character types and realize them calmly, but I think it may be a disaster without a background as a suitable entry point. If you want everything, you can't have anything. Jonathan added, really? That's going to take a while. Lemon smiled. In the original Time and Space, the preparations for the third and final chapter were very slow. Warner executives were certainly not stupid, but they saw the driving effect of Bruce Wayne, so they were so entangled in the matching of characters. Let's put it this way, Marvel's group strategy is not the first to implement it. As early as in Van Helsing, Universal had created a hodgepodge of characters. Werewolf, Frankenstein, vampires. These are all classic screen images created by Universal in the past. Everyone knows the result. Because there is no good plot connection, it looks messy, which directly makes the transformation of the leading actor Hugh Jackman tortuous. In other words, orderly giants exert their strength, characters intervene, and slowly form a group, which is the production concept that Marvel leads other studios. However, before it was fully understood, even Warner, which owns DC, just thought that Marvel's routine was very common, and it was nothing more than developing sufficiently valuable characters. DC has always done this. Superman, Batman, Superman, Batman seem to be constantly reincarnated. Forget about them. We are perfecting another idea recently. Nolan looked at Jonathan. When the script is out, we will talk. Nolan was not completely idle this year. The top of The Dark Knight not only put him under more pressure to make better works and not disappoint the fans who supported him, but he was also looking for the next subject to shoot. It happened that he had a better explanation for the sensory confusion presented in Memento. Hearing this, Lemon was thoughtful, but soon turned his attention to the big screen. Nolan is getting along well with Firefly now. Of course, the first choice for new ideas is Firefly. Lemon is not worried. After the brand animation of the blue butterfly light spots, Ben Stiller's ordinary and humorous screen temperament began to attract the hearts of the audience again. Cheers and laughter. The atmosphere here is still good. Chapter 873. The peak has passed. No longer novel. Please subscribe. Vote. The Thinker is so funny. It's still fun. Ben Stiller is so funny. Yeah, I came to see it just for him. Am I the only one who thinks it's not as good as the first one? Some of the mischievous plots are a little hard to accept, but overall it's pretty good. The audience's voices were mixed with a little disappointment in the discussion after the show. Lyman thought it was just a case of fans who couldn't get used to noisy and spoof comedies, but he didn't expect that the screening trend of the second part was really not that optimistic. According to the spot check survey of the real-time moviegoers, 83% of the audience gave positive comments, above B, passing line, which seems to be a good performance, but the word of mouth feels a little worse than the stunning debut of the first part. After analyzing it, it turns out that the museum series has encountered many of the same problems as the sequels. That is, the creativity of the first part looks novel, and the second part, after continuing the box office element of the previous work, is easy to fall into the evaluation of cliché and awkward. In other words, when fresh is no longer fresh, it means that the peak has passed. This is like a story about fighting monsters and leveling up. The route of frequently changing maps, but not changing the medicine will definitely be criticized. Although it is well written, there will definitely be readers chasing it, but it may be difficult to attract more readers. The same is true for Museum 2. On the first day of its release on the 16th, 3,300 theaters opened, with nearly 4,950 screens, but the single-day revenue was only $14.3 million. Although this is the best performance on the first day of the spring season in January, it is basically the same as Madagascar a few years ago, and it is $2.2 million more than the single-day box office of $12.1 million obtained by the first night at the museum. But you have to know that the sequel can accumulate the popularity of the previous work. This box office increase of less than 17% is worse than many popular sequels. Let's do some calculations. The first film cost $120 million to produce, and the second film cost $150 million. There are more rental scenes and a stronger style in Oop. The increase in the participation of comedians such as Amy Adams, Hank Azaria, and Steve Coogan is visibly not good enough. At least it is $1.7 million less than the $16 million on the first day that Lyman expected. Don't underestimate this box office. It symbolizes the height it should have, and means the instability of the subsequent direction. Not to mention, after the first day of release, the media review of Museum 2 was only 44 points, which is much less than the 57 points of the first film. Of course, as a comedy, it has a low score and a weak reputation, but the money-making storm will not be restrained because of these harsh reviews. At most, it has affected the company's expectations of the results that should have been more popular. As expected, after the first weekend, although Night at the Museum 2 easily topped the list, with an average attendance rate of 74% over 3 days, and the highest box office in the entire January period of $50.3 million, and a single theater of $15,242. Rotten Tomatoes only gave it a pitiful 54% freshness, which is undoubtedly a rotten start. Even the New York Post that praised it at the time shook its head and lamented, although Night at the Museum 2 is only 105 minutes, it seems to have been shown for several days and nights. During this period, I looked at the watch many times, and couldn't wait to leave, because the film did not find its comedy roots at all. Maybe children will like it very much, and even learn a little bit of historical knowledge, but it is really a superfluous sequel. There are also positive comments among the large number of bad voices, but they are rare. It may be that the public relations company hired by Blue Butterfly Pictures is helping to guide the image of the film. However, compared with this, in the era of comparing the worst, Night at the Museum 2 is by no means the worst in the period. On the contrary, it has the best performance and the most satisfactory audience. This is very ironic. For example, Gangster Rap, which started high but ended low, fell 53% in the second week under the joint efforts of Firefly and Lionsgate, earning only $11.66 million, ranking third in the weekly list. The attendance rate was far below expectations, and the profit margin shrank instantly. Lionsgate's new film Bloody Valentine earned $21.91 million, with a 39% positive rating, maintaining the niche level of low-cost horror films, extremely bad gimmicks, vulgar plots, but the scale is quite large. The bloody excitement is amazing, and the audience who can watch this kind of blood horror can see the full vision. According to this result, shooting a series is on the agenda again, and Lionsgate's opening work of the year has also played a momentum. Therefore, contrary to the criticism, after the addition of several new works, the film market this week can be said to have fallen into a virtuous circle, attracting many audiences to the theater. Let's put it this way. The total box office of the top 12 movies this week is $168 million, 31.6% more than last week. The biggest one is The Museum, which is also the best single week performance since January, 9% higher than the same period last year. After a slightly lower than expected first week, The Museum 2 immediately ushered in the weekend schedule from the 23rd to the 25th, and fought against the new Sony and Warner. Speaking of it, The Museum 2 is indeed not so eye-catching, but it is also a hot sequel, with a bad reputation and a solid foundation. I don't know if Lyman was underestimated and thought it was a good challenge. Underworld 3, Rise of the Wolves directly bumped in. Before the screening, director Patrick Tatopoulos even vowed that he could take over the position of The Museum 2. But the funny thing is that this series has always been a second-tier special effects film. The two films launched in 2003 and 2006 only allowed Sony Columbia Pictures to taste the benefits of grasping cost effectiveness and tightly control the scale of investment. You know, Underworld 3 only cost $35 million. Is that the same level? Even after the first week, the film landed in 1,500 theaters and 2,942 screens and recovered $8.05 million in a single day. The overall situation was only $2.15 million less than the previous one. The second one was $10.2 million in a single day and $26.9 million at the weekend box office. In addition, the director thought that the change of the Lyman, replacing the heroine Kate Beckinsale with the younger Laura Mitra, would make the audience feel new, activate the market and explode, but the facts proved that they thought too much, and the fans did not buy it. Even though Mitra's figure is not much worse than Kate, it doesn't give face. The film's praise rate is only 40%, and it is also classified as a bad movie. In the end, it won $20.7 million in the first week, which is also 29% lower than the previous one. The data of $7,036 per theater is the worst in the series. The entire creators did not dare to brag about it during the promotion period. The most difficult role was played by the female lead, Laura Mitra. This actress, who debuted as a model named Laura, is not very popular in the film industry, but she is still active. She is low-key, introverted, and practical. Although she often plays supporting roles, she has not made any mistakes. As a result, she was boycotted by Kate Beckinsale's fans because of the replacement of Underworld 3. After the release, she was criticized by the audience for wearing leather pants without Beckinsale's beautiful and seductive legs. If you can't even see this, what else can you watch? You can say that she is an old unlucky person. Her popularity did not increase, and she was also accused of being a poor imitation, losing the essence of the film. A big black pot fell on her head, covering up the mistakes made by the core team such as the investors, directors, and producers during the preparation of the crew. Even the biggest threat failed to perform well, and Museum 2 successfully continued to rank first on the list. Even though it fell 45% in the second week, it earned $27.66 million in 3 days over the weekend, still winning 2 consecutive championships. The cumulative box office in North America was $92.16 million, and overseas was $47.38 million, with a total score of $139 million. As for Warner's new work, it became a laughingstock. Chapter 874 Ink hard subscriptions, votes required. Ironcut, a fantasy film adapted from a best-selling novel of the same name, has been ranked first in the charts and swept Europe and the United States, mainly Europe. The author is German. Many media and readers regard it as a new classic of youth literature. Now it has finally been put on the big screen after much anticipation, but it was put on the back burner by Warner early on. Why? It's because of the Golden Compass. Many things in this world influence each other. When Warner pushed the Harry Potter series, it didn't think that this series would be so profitable, but after tasting the sweetness, Warner is indeed the studio that likes this kind of youth fantasy theme the most. Many companies have made it, but only Warner has made the most and invested the most. Ironcut started filming in mid-2007. The casting process was very busy for a while, but halfway through filming, the Golden Compass flopped at the box office. After carefully looking for the problem, Warner Brothers found that in addition to the wrong direction, it also found that the hot money that has been pouring into the fantasy market in recent years has caused the audience to be aesthetically fatigued. There is no novelty in the repeated repetitions, and it has to be compared with The Lord of the Rings at any time. So strictly speaking, Warner Brothers itself had a bad premonition and knew that Ironcut would be difficult to succeed, but the problem was that the arrow was on the string and had to be shot. By the time Warner Brothers realized that the situation had changed, Ironcut had already been filmed for more than half, and it had to go ahead with it, otherwise the investment would be wasted. Of course, if it were that simple, Warner Brothers would at most suffer a loss, but combined with some of the conflicts revealed, there was a group of people who proposed to postpone the filming. What does it mean? Let's go first, wait for the audience to take a break, and then choose a time to make Ironcut. To put it bluntly, it means changing the distribution plan and postponing the production, but it may take a little longer. 2 or 3 years is common. As a result, the main creators were not happy, jumped out and yelled, "Why? Isn't this bullying honest people? Why is the promise not counted? Can the money be paid?" Warner was hesitant to begin with, and this made them angry. "Oh, we are all standing by the pond, with no way out. If we don't jump, there may be a turnaround. If we jump, we still have to bear the unfavorable impressions brought by Dragon Rider and the Golden Compass. What can we fight this battle with?" From the perspective of the crew, they are not wrong. Who doesn't want to get the results comfortably? They have to take risks, but no one is happy to drag it on like this, especially when the movie hasn't lost yet. "Do it or not. Give me a definite answer," the crew said impatiently. Therefore, Ironcut uses itself as a case to prove the truth, that the Hollywood film industry will make bad moves if they think too much. The cycle from the start of filming to post-production is as long as 15 months, with stops, takes, and quarrels. You know, the film's crew is not bad. The director Ian Softly is a British man. After making Wings of Desire in 1997 and sending Helena Bonham Carter to the final round of Oscars for Best Actress, he has been respected by Hollywood. The male lead Brendan Fraser is a big name who has a brand but no market. There is no hope for a sequel to the Mummy series, and Brandon's situation has become embarrassing because this is his best feature. A typical all-you-can-eat series, but when he took this project, it was not too bad, and his golden body was still there, plus Helen Mirren and Jim Broadbent, who guarantee their acting skills, and Paul Bettany, who starred in the Da Vinci Code and Master and Commander. This is a popular British new generation. But the result is that the 36% favorable rating is shocking. The first day of the film's opening in 2,655 theaters only earned $7.22 million, which is even more unbearable. Film Salon commented, "The characters in the original novel are very interesting and full of personality, but they are all played like idiots in the movie. Logically speaking, they are all actors who are good at acting. Why is the effect so disgusting when they are put together?" The New York Post believes that the whole story of Ironcut is not bad, but there is no reason to say it is good. The only thing the director can be thankful for is that there are no obvious ink spots in Ironcut. The New York Times asked, "Brandon Fraser keeps playing the same role. Does he want to vomit?" With such a result, even in the spring season, when the competition is not fierce, it can only rank 7th. Behind it is Bride Wars, which has been released for 3 weeks and has earned $7.02 million. The 7th position does not look stable. What's more amazing is that Warner has become more determined to play badly and even stopped approving publicity funds, allowing the criticism to fly everywhere to minimize losses. Ian Softly, the 51-year-old project director, was drunk on the night when Ironcut failed. When he was dragged out of the bar by his friends, he was unlucky enough to meet paparazzi, who repeatedly exposed his scars. "How do you feel after the halo faded? Do you think Ironcut can still turn around? Or is the loss its end? Do you think this result is satisfactory?" Poor Ian was still drunk and was furious when asked, which was exactly what the paparazzi wanted to see the most. These people certainly didn't hate him, they just wanted to hype the topic, and it would be even better if they were so angry that they took action. Ian Softly was in a bad mood to begin with, and the statement that the halo faded and became mediocre was even more irritating. He drank a lot of wine, so he didn't have the strength to take action, but he could still swear. He even mentioned Warner in his conversation, saying that they did not fulfill their responsibilities, reduced the scale of publicity and promotion, and treated unfairly. In short, he was full of resentment. Life has its ups and downs, but he definitely fell. He was already responsible for the failure of Ironcut, and his speech was not measured. A few complaints affected the brand image of Warner, who would tolerate him. Later, he returned to the UK and could no longer step into Hollywood. "Boss, I think the filming plan of Museum 3 may have to be slowed down," Lyman proposed seriously in the office of the Firefly building. Although Museum 2 had good box office and won 2 consecutive championships, it actually revealed many problems. First, the audience's sense of freshness was consumed a lot. With the popularity of the first part, it was stumbling and there was no sign of crushing. Second, the sequel of the series is prone to lack of selling points and aesthetic fatigue. Finally, the reputation collapsed, and the third part was even more difficult to shoot, because the investment budget will only increase, and it is difficult to reduce. It can still make a profit now, but it is hard to say in the future. Don't wait until the total box office declines. The salary of the main creators rises, and they have to ensure the big scenes. When the expenditure is compared with the income, alas, it is a loss, which directly affects the value of the copyright. Moreover, the opening was not up to expectations, and the second week fell by 45%, which made Lyman not optimistic about the future of museum. He could only learn from other studios' practices, put it on ice, cultivate audience interest, wait a few years before developing it, so that there would be fewer negative images, and make full use of the characteristics of time healing. After he made his proposal, he found that his boss was concentrating on studying a document. Looking closely, it seemed to be a film tax rebate policy issued by the state governments. Sometimes, Lyman really admired Lemon's character. He did things in a way that he did things. He was so rich, but he still worked so hard, and didn't waste money. Boss, what are you doing? I found that the discounts for filming in some places in China are much higher now. Is this considered to encourage the crew not to leave? Recently, the attitude of various states towards the film and television industry is really strange. When the economy was good before, they were almost indifferent. The crew could go wherever they wanted to film. Now, they are showing some active intentions, and the tax rebate policy they issued is quite tempting. Chapter 875 New Moon Crew. Please subscribe, vote. What shots are we going to shoot today? Kristen sat in the RV, waiting for the assistant to get the specific shooting plan from the director, and flipping through it. Since the screening of Twilight, her importance has risen, so much so that the company has equipped her with a large team. On the set, Chris Weitz acted quickly. The indoor scenes of New Moon were directly shot at the New Line Studios. After shooting for a few days and getting familiar with it, the speed was increased. When Kristen finished her makeup, put on her contact lenses, and stood in front of the camera, the girl immediately became the focus of everyone's attention. Okay, it's past. Prepare for the next shot. Half an hour later, director Weitz nodded with satisfaction, turned around and said to the girl kindly, "Keep this state, Kristen, you are great today. Try to pass all in one take." "Thank you." Faced with the director's closeness, Kristen has gone from being a little embarrassed to being very accustomed. Although she knew her acting skills, she was just playing a face-numbing woman with few emotional changes. I don't know how many Golden Plum Awards Twilight won, and she only needed to be beautiful. Even the lines could be redone with the script later, which was not difficult. If it weren't for her popularity, other people's attitudes might not be so, but who made her a new rising star that Hollywood could not ignore? The girl was actually very smart. She didn't need the agency to help her maintain her image. She knew that she was living a different life from her past. She lived very clearly and didn't feel complacent about it. Instead, she seized the opportunity and began to work harder to polish her acting skills. After Kristen became popular, most of the plays she took were independent works, and her acting style was very varied. In other words, she did not rashly consume her popularity to guarantee the box office. The next one is a group play with Robert and others. You can brew your emotions first. Director Weitz reminded her at the end, and then went to discuss with the lighting team how to arrange the next shot. To be honest, the girl didn't like the partner who was deliberately tied to her for publicity, but there was no way. There were many benefits to doing so. Whether it was the investor Firefly or the agency or even the brand behind her, they all needed this relationship to be maintained, unless fans were more willing to buy it. So when the crew moved to the second floor of the luxurious residence, they filmed Bella's birthday gift from Edward, and prepared to dismantle it. As a result, she was cut and bleeding, which caused Japus, Edward's sister's husband, who had the worst self-control, to have the impulse to be bloodthirsty, and almost led to a tragedy. In fact, it was also a very simple shot, but we had to create an atmosphere in which Bella and Edward had a good impression of each other. To be romantic, there should be light in their eyes. Well, it seems that there is no light or not. For this embarrassing ambiguity and the hype point of falling in love with the play, Kristen broke up with her ex-boyfriend Michael Angarano, the American teenager who got the golden hoop in the Forbidden Kingdom. These two met during filming. At that time, they were both small actors, of similar age, and had a short relationship, and there was no hype value. The arrangement of this scene is just a foreshadowing, in order to lead the werewolf and Bella to spend time alone together. Following the routine of Kyung-Yeo, there is no conflict in the plot, so a third party is used to create it. All departments are ready. The director arranged another camera position to the side and rear of several actors who will wait for a close-up view. After waiting for a satisfactory lighting effect, the clapperboard recorded it and started shooting immediately. This is the third time that Lyman has visited the crew of New Moon. It's not that he is worried that the Wheats brothers can't control the crew, but he comes to pay more attention to Eva's work when he has free time. After the leisurely time together is over, he will spend some energy to talk to Chris about the progress of the shooting. Another take passed. Chris Wheats himself was a little emotional. The actors are all very good, willing to cooperate, and not temperamental. Of course, this is just a complaint from feeling. Lyman knew that this guy still hasn't gotten over the failure of the Golden Compass. He also vaguely knew that during the filming of that movie, Nicole Kidman asked the crew to help her take care of her pet cat, and even asked and intervened in the arrangement of the role at any time. If it hadn't been a failure, none of this would have been serious. After all, he wasn't late, and went on set as required by the filming. He was much more dedicated than those irresponsible actors who paused filming and cut out pictures at will. But whoever takes the blame will cause conflicts. Even good relationships are prone to become stiff, not to mention that the two of them are not familiar with each other at all. The part originally scheduled to be filmed in New Zealand may be changed. I just informed Paul and asked him to arrange for the location crew to find an alternative scene in Indiana. The crew will then switch to domestic filming. After Chris's emotions calmed down a little, Lyman said, "Why? It's obviously already decided. Sorry, I don't want to change it back and forth and create trouble artificially, but the policy over there is more friendly to the crew. You know, although I'm a director, I also have to consider the interests of the company. The states in the United States are actually quite strange. In addition to the Constitution, the attitudes of the state governments themselves are often inconsistent. For example, in some places, the sale of leaf flying is legal, while in some states it is strictly prohibited. As for the subtleties of film and television shooting, each state has different subsidy policies. Massachusetts simply has no relevant preferential policies. After repeatedly comparing the conditions and the crew's own situation, Indiana's tax rebate subsidy for filming is the most beneficial and convenient. After all the operations, the crew brings job opportunities and consumption to the local area, a series of visible benefits such as boxed lunches, fast food and hotel accommodation, and when a certain threshold is reached, they can enjoy a tax rebate of 8% to 15%, depending on the level of performance. According to the established scenes and relatively more scenes, a rough calculation should be able to obtain more than 3 million subsidies, and then count the film's financial sponsors, such as Rue 21's main British knitted cardigan, which costs 2.7 million for just a few shots, Dyer's earrings and necklaces, 5.2 million, Givenchy's men's formal wear, 4.4 million, and other chandeliers, furniture and other brands. A total of more than $22 million were brought to the film. Because of the existence of Twilight, they even reached an agreement with Firefly to help promote the film during its screening. These values are not measured by money, but more like a community of interests, based on New Moon. They all recognize the money-making ability of Twilight, which helps to improve the image of the film and promote sales. In other words, more than 25 million of the 54 million shooting budget has been recovered. As long as more than 42 million can be obtained in North America, the cost can be recovered, which is only 1/10 of the box office performance of the previous film, and the cumulative popularity is not considered. You just arrange it. I'm only responsible for the shooting. Chris Wheats was a little dissatisfied, but didn't say anything more. Sometimes, the director's power is really small. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.